Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. I'm joined by Lily Padman.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Did you have a good Halloween?
The best.
Oh, perfect.
The best ever.
The best of all time. Good. This is a sweet episode. This is kind of like when I got to interview my mom. This is my idol, my hero, my best friend, Tom Hansen. I talk about him a lot on
Comes
here.
up all the time.
He even came up with other people. Robert Downey had a lot to say about Tom Hansen.
Kimmel. He came up on Kimmel's.
Mm-hmm.
He comes up, and you guys get to meet him
It's pretty
today.
universal when he comes up, too. Everyone loves him.
Yeah.
Always makes me happy. Yes, Tom is one of the greatest entertainment lawyers to ever live, to ever do this. He's just as good as it gets at that job. And, of course, he's my best friend. It was so fun to get to talk to him and hear, new stuff.
That's fun.
It was. All that immigrant stuff was really fascinating.
Yeah, we got a good history.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone enjoys as much as I do Tom Hansen.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
You got to scoot all the way to the corner. I know.
I know we have rules. I
Look
know.
at the technical joy for the people in charge and the mere guests.
Tom, you came in Eric Richardson style with your iPad. Eric doesn't travel anywhere without his iPad.
I didn't know if I would want to do any research about my, copious life and all of the things I've forgotten in the last 6 months.
Some of it a blessing, some of it a curse.
It's a little bit of both, Why do you have all those warships on there just to keep making sure you don't accidentally torpedo the wrong aircraft?
That's right. I don't want any friendly fire to happen on my watch.
It's a cheat sheet.
Are we recording?
We're always recording.
The mysterious part is why in the world anyone would want to interview me, other than the fact that I'm your pal and you seem to mention me from time to time, which is my only claim to fame.
That's not your only claim to fame,
among
for starters.
Certainly among young people.
Listen to me, Tom. I know you don't listen to the show, but on Thursdays is Experts. So we regularly talk to attorneys and professors and academics. So it's not people that are just
losers like me
in film and television. You're very par for the course. And I would even say more because you are a famous lawyer.
Except, that was the plan.
Oh, but you are Monday.
But we have now moved you to Monday, our celebrity slot.
Oh, wow. You must have been a dearth of good.
It is a strike.
What exactly? Henny Youngman was not available?
No, because Dax's mom came on the show. And now Dax's dad is on the show.
That's right.
Oh,
chosen dad.
That's very charming. I think maybe the real dad was probably more amusing.
I mean, I have heard some stories.
I've only met him a couple of times.
You got to meet him.
I did.
He came to his house to the
Came
meeting.
to my house, and he was hilarious.
You can be, fully
You can
honest.
be rude.
Well, no, I'm trying to remember exactly the context, but he was asking questions that were completely unrelated to what we were all doing. It's like in the middle of sharing, where'd you get that watch?
I know exactly what you're thinking of. And by the way, this is a little bit common in Michigan AA. People chat a little bit while you're sharing because in Michigan AA, or at least all the meetings I went to, you come in, they read all the stuff, and then you break off into tables. And what's really cool about that is often the tables are set up like that's a step 1 table, step 2. If you want to talk step 4, you sit at a step 4 table. And then each table has a leader. This is where it got confusing for my dad.
I see.
So the leader shares first, and then it's tons of crosstalk.
Just a little chat-a-thon there?
Yes, which suffice to say is not how our meeting works at all. But you're right in remembering that he was abnormally engaged conversationally with people he had never met. I think I brought my uncle too, and he did the same thing.
It's always interesting to meet someone who's as legendary as Bob's his name, right?
Dave.
Dave, I always screw up his name.
Well, you always call Barton Bart, which amuses me to no end. My stepdad.
Yeah, whose also name was Dave.
We'll talk about him later. But it's
I know exactly.
always.
Oh, I can't wait. So many pins.
It's always interesting.
I don't want to forget this one. I'm sorry, but this is the funniest joke Tom has ever made. I think about it once a month. I laugh. As you know, I assisted Barton in his passing. Yeah. Heavily assisted. And so my mom had a boyfriend for a minute that I didn't really love, and I was kind of venting to Tom about this new boyfriend that I didn't like. And he says, well, does he know what you did to the last guy?
I actually said, Does he know you killed the last guy?
Yes. Oh my God. And then I think the next day you called me and you were like, was that an okay joke? I was like, oh my God, I'm still laughing
So
about this.
funny.
It wasn't exactly appropriate, but part of what has bound us together in this bizarre friendship is that we can be somewhat inappropriate at times, but we're
Yeah.
smart enough to do it in the correct environment.
Until today.
Well, no.
You're easing your way out of this job,
Yes,
right?
I am.
You're softly retiring. I still have a bit to go, so it's the stakes are a little
So
higher
your cancellation is significantly more
Eminent.
egregious and
Treacherous, yeah.
serious. You clearly have to spend a lot of money to finish this house. So
Right.
just in deference to Monica, who has to look at this shit pile here, just
Exactly.
being able to finish it someday so she can look out of her glorious window and not see 1,800 disabled vehicles.
Yeah,
And
the Clampets.
yeah, definitely the Clampets. What would you be it's not the Beverly Hillbillies or the...
But I
little bit.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the neighborhood, so it'd be the Los
Oh, right.
Feliz. We have to come up with a
Degenerates,
title for you.
hillbillies,
But
pigs.
what's great about it is you're a hillbilly, but you can function okay. Like Jed never really made the leap. You know what I mean?
You're right. He never became self-actualized.
No, he never was able to have an interview with Bill Gates. You know what I mean? He's just
Right.
he always lived in doggies. It was always the same
And he
thing.
continued to drive that old pickup truck around Beverly Hills. He never
Correct.
upgraded the way I did.
And he had so many opportunities to do so. He
did.
You're a little bit more like Jethro, I think. Sort of got with the program, and you got a cool car,
1 foot in Kentucky,
Yeah.
1 foot in LA.
nice haircut.
And
All
you
that
spent
stuff.
the summer at Martha's Vineyard, so
I
Yeah,
know.
I'm definitely losing my hillbilly
you
status.
are.
Yeah.
That is not
that's
a hillbilly.
points off of hillbilly.
That's not a hillbilly hang up, but you are reasserting your hillbilly credentials with the Tennessee place. Aren't you going to have like a go-kart track?
Enormous pyrotechnic display on 4th of July.
Are you going to have a pontoon boat?
Oh, God, yes. Way too much motor on back is the plan.
You're kind of, and the great thing about it is I think they modeled it on you in the beginning of Idiocracy. The parallels between the highly educated family. You could have had it gone a different way, the model for that other side.
The
And I don't-
football player.
Yeah, with the truck and the 400 children and the,
Yeah.
the whole thing. And somewhere along the line, there was a strange evolutionary break that sort of took both of us to
Yes.
some degree
Yes.
out of this kind of protozoan stream that would have ended us up living, if we were lucky, in that Quonset hut that we long for. It's evolutionary. It's genetic. We're like salmon that want to return to our river. We want to return to a Quonset hut
We want to go home.
in Palmdale. Yeah.
That's
So-
right. And start a religion. We'll get into that. In fact, maybe we'll hopefully get some recruits.
Oh,
Let's start at the beginning because you just mentioned it, which is, I think when we first met, we wouldn't have known this about one another, right? I met you. You just mentioned before we started recording that you're 2 days away from 20 years.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
fucking amazing. It's impossible.
Amazing.
It's impossible.
It is.
Yeah. And you rolled up to this meeting, and I want to say you were driving an S class at the time.
Of course I was.
Yes. And I thought, look at this rich asshole.
How old were you?
Well, it was
20
20
years
years ago.
ago.
I was
you had
28.
been-
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, 28 years old. And he rolled up, and his hair is so thick, as you're now looking at Monica. His hair was so
Gorgeous.
thick
Darker then, too.
to be envied. And he is in this S-Class Mercedes, kind of like a tycoon's car. And I was like, oh, this is a rich guy. But then slowly, as I heard you share over the years, I was like, hold on a second. This guy's also a Clampett.
Yes, a Clampett from a different part of the southern San Fernando Valley.
You're from Reseda?
Correct. I was born in Van Nuys. Never lived in Van Nuys. I was taken home to the house that I grew up in.
And never left.
Not until my parents moved out and left me there. That was a whole different story.
But I mean, you had the house the whole childhood.
Yeah.
And what was Reseda like in the 50s?
Working class, very white. Most of the dads worked in the defense plants because there were all the aircraft plants. Douglas, Lockheed were all over the place. There were car plants. They had a Chevrolet plant. They made Chevelles in Van Nuys.
They made Chevelles
They
in Van
sure
Nuys.
did. They
I had
sure
no
did.
idea.
Right on Van Nuys Boulevard and kind of Sherman Way, Roscoe, and there was a rail line, and there would actually take the Chevelles out to various parts of the world.
Dropped
So
one off in Livonia, Michigan to my father his senior year, 68 Chevelle.
probably did. They were still making them. I think they even made Camaros there at one time.
Oh,
So
really?
it was a very working class environment. Most people owned their little houses.
They were kind of post World War II bungalow.
100%. Ours was, tract houses. That was the beginning of tract housing. We lived in a 1,500 square foot house that my father bought on the GI Bill because he was in the military. The reality there was the dominant events of most everybody's parents' lives were the Great Depression and World War II. Most parents were born in 1918 to 1923, so they were all eligible for military service. They all ended up scraping through the Depression. A lot of people, not as many as in the Central Valley, but a lot of people who I grew up with, parents were from the Dust Bowl. Were from Arkansas and Oklahoma and came out because there was farming in the San Fernando Valley.
Isn't this unimaginable, Monica?
Yeah, it feels
It is. And to add to it, it's kind of inconceivable to me even to think about it. I don't have a grandparent who was born in the U.S.
Oh, really?
My grandfather was named Rangwald Hansen, born in Norway.
Oh, wow.
Came here with his brother and sister when he was 4. It was interesting because I tried to find him on the Ellis Island website. I figured how many Rangwald Hansen, couldn't find him.
Oh, really?
And my great-grandfather's name was John, and there were a bunch of John Hansens. And then there was my great-grandmother's name was Caroline. So I looked that up and I found her. And she came in like 1902 with my grandfather, who was 4, and his 2 younger siblings by herself.
Oh, my Lord.
And I then saw the ship she'd come in. She was from the town of Arundel.
No way.
From
was frozen.
Frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
They grew up in Arundel. And so I traced the ships. And about a month later, my great grandfather came. And I asked my uncle, who was the last surviving member of that generation, I said, was there some story about them not being able to come together? And he said, yeah, selling their property, and there was a hang up and he had to stay. Ship only ran once a month, so he had to stay an extra month. And you think about, she was 28, spoke not a word of English, and came into the U.S. by herself. They ended up in Chicago. My great-grandfather was a coffin maker, so he was a master carpenter. My grandfather grew up in Chicago. He met my grandmother on a wrong number.
Which back then was like
Meet
G18
cute.
or something weird.
Correct. They were in Chicago, and they started chatting, and she was the youngest of her family. She was actually just barely born in the U.S., conceived in Sweden, and came over. And their story was their boat hit an iceberg and sank. And everybody got off, but her father came off only with his money belt and nothing else. So they had to start completely over in Chicago. So they met in a wrong number. She was 16. He was like 20.
But 16 back then was like 31.
Yeah, bro.
Let's just be clear. She was like behind that she didn't have any kids yet.
They met and they kind of got married secretly and, all these stories. And he died in her arms. That's my romantic story that brings tears to my eyes.
How'd everyone get to California?
Well, during the war, my grandfather, he was a milkman. He started with a horse and wagon, and the horse would know where to stop. It was, like that. And then he also sold railway tickets as a part-time job in the lobby of the Drake Hotel, which if you've ever been to Chicago is one of these. It's like the Miramar downtown or the Biltmore downtown. And they had a ticket office for the railroad. So he saved money and he was pretty industrious. And at some point, when the boys were in the war, my uncle and my dad was in the Navy, my uncle was in the Air Force, they heard about California. So my grandfather at that point was probably about 45, and he and his brother-in-law decided they were going to go to California and buy some property, and they were going to farm it. And this California was going to be good someday. It's going to be a good investment. So right near the end of the war, they moved lock, stock, and barrel with my uncle who was younger and my aunt who was younger, bought about 80 acres together. They built 2 houses. The boys came back from the war. My dad had a job in Chicago. He was a machinist. And my mother, who was from Sydney, Australia, they met during the war, spent one winter in Chicago and said, we can either move to California where your parents are, or I can move back to Sydney. So
without you.
My sister was born in Chicago, and then they moved to California in 1946. And the boys and my grandfather, my great-grandfather, built the house. And this house was there until 1977, and I could pace the floor. I can tell you where everything was. I can describe every wall in it because it was this magic place.
Oh, yeah.
And I would go help my grandfather in the chicken ranch and scrape the poop and get the eggs. And my grandmother was the grandma that every single one of her grandchildren would tell you I was her favorite.
Yeah.
Every one of them. She was that grandma.
Isn't
And
that
she
the
was
goal
true,
for
though.
everyone
Yeah.
to think that about themselves?
She was just the greatest. I can't even begin to describe.
It's so common. My affinity is for my Papa Bob, right? And my Grandma Yolis. They were just saviors.
Yeah.
And they were, as I think grandparents get to do, it's kind of a second chance. Like they got to raise my brother and I in a way that maybe they were harder on my dad and my uncle.
Yeah, it's weird. As time went on and I got older and more perceptive and paid more attention, I became very close with my father's youngest brother, who passed away last year. The best one of the bunch, in my opinion. It sort of reaffirmed some of my senses that my grandma was not crazy about my dad. He was not her favorite. And I think he knew it and kind of felt it. There was one daughter who was completely doted over and took advantage of it and created some resentment within the family. But it was such a magical place for me. I could ride my bike from where we lived. It was 10 minutes away by bike. And there were geese and ducks and sheep and boarded horses.
It makes me think of when you're reading like the Cornelius Vanderbilt biography or Titan John D. Rockefeller, and that these guys had stables in Manhattan.
Well, Vanderbilt used to love to race them.
Oh, he sure
was really,
did.
He was really competitive, and he always wanted the fastest horses.
He and Rockefeller almost killed himself a few times racing randoms with his fucking race horses. It's kind of funny because it's the original car. Like rich
of
dudes have
course.
always wanted.
Of course. I mean, you read some of the Sherlock Holmes novels. When somebody comes to Baker Street, he looks out the window and he sort of judges them by how fine their carriage is. A fine pair of sleek roans, So clearly a man of means.
I wonder what it was like for your dad, if he felt that growing up, to then see your grandmother so affectionate towards you. Like, I wonder if that was
triggering,
either good or bad. I don't know.
It's hard to tell. Trying to review your parental scenario, even when you're an old geezer, is complicated.
Yes.
My parents had a complicated relationship. Everybody has a complicated relationship. But my mother came from poverty in Australia. She was one of 5 kids. She was the oldest. She had to quit school when she was like 14, go to work. And they got divorced when I was in my 30s. Like, the light went on. That answers the question.
Right.
Because they were never terribly affectionate. They didn't fight a lot, only a couple of times. But there was always like, this doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
And sort of the light went on. And, unfortunately, when your parents get divorced, one of them at least has to tell you a lot of stuff you'd really prefer not to know.
Right.
You know, like your father wouldn't pay to have the dog you loved fixed and put her down and supposed to pay for it's like, I don't really need
I don't need more ammo.
I don't need
Mom.
more ammo.
The chamber is locked.
But my mom, I think one of her big motivations was to escape this bad situation she was in Australia, where she really had a heavy burden for a woman of her age. And she was very smart, very attractive. And my dad, I think, promised her the moon. Mm-hmm. You'll never have to work. And my dad couldn't keep a job until he got a job at the post office. Never was ambitious until my mother drove him to it. So I think he lived in a constant state of someone being disappointed in him. And I think that wore on him as time went by. And he drank. And can you tell if your parent was an alcoholic? I think so. He drank every day and he got weird sometimes. And I would occasionally have to go out the back gate over to the bar, the Mountaineer, the beer bar, and drag him out of there.
You could support or shatter. I have this weird stereotype about postal employees. Sincerely. And a lot of it comes from reading Bukowski. And he, for years, worked at the Postal Service. And his explanation of it, and I probably have just bought into it, was a place that people that were very smart but not ambitious went. Because you had to pass this test. There was a pretty lengthy test of your intellect to become a postal employee. So a lot of people found their way there that were inordinately smart to have a job that wasn't going to have any real growth to it. Do you think that's consistent at all? Because your dad had to be fucking smart as hell.
He showed no interest in any intellectual pursuits whatsoever.
Really?
None. Didn't read.
So do you attribute all of your curiosity to your mom?
Yeah. And I don't even know most of them because they stayed in Australia. A phone call to Australia was a huge deal in the 50s. It was really expensive. It was like $7 or $8. And that was a lot of money for people in the 50s. So I don't really have that much contact. My dad just was not ambitious. He was a guy who just wanted to get along. And by the way, so many people of that generation, having lived through the Great Depression and World War II, I just want to get along.
Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
want any fucking action.
It was the
Yeah.
50s. There was no reason to raise your head above anybody else's. I think they were just so happy to be okay.
But I think the really relevant thing, because this is one of the many things I've kind of looked to you for guidance on, is suffice to say, you had a tough relationship with your dad for whatever reason. You guys butted heads a lot.
Yes, we did.
I guess what was your reaction to that? You were
again,
insolent? Is that a
I would
what
say,
word would we use?
I was more than that.
Insufferable? Would we use that word?
Yeah, I was insufferable. It was this weird thing, and it was this combination of things, which is I was the worst listener the world's ever known, as far as I can tell. I didn't want to hear anything from anybody.
Because you knew it already, or just you
I
were busy
decided
talking?
I knew it already, and
Yeah.
I was busy talking, and I was so, which I still am to a large degree. I don't know if it's clinical ADD, but my attention span is very short. I was a good student. I don't know if I'm any smarter than anybody else,
You are. You're not going to be able to say it, but you're insanely
but I
smart.
was really, really good. This is what distinguished me from my derelict friends who I've told you about.
Yeah.
Is I was really good at doing what school was asking you to do.
Right.
I was very good at that narrow curve of learning, which involved some memorization, some analysis, some logic. I was really good at it, and I finished work very quickly, and I was bored as hell. So I disrupted everything.
Yeah.
And that was my MO.
And you were drawn. So this is another similarity. We love other
Attention?
shitheads. We love other scumbags, right? Like all of my friends are the same as me. They're all divorced kids. They like to get into some shit and get into an alley. You had that too, right? You're drawn to.
That came later. In the early days, I was not big. I was a petite individual, and I was very emotional, and I was
love that about
very
you.
poor at accepting criticism, and I would react violently to things I didn't like. And I did a fair amount of stalking of other kids when they sort of represented something that was standing in the way of what I wanted to do that very second. From like the third grade on, I was always in trouble because I just couldn't do it. I was just too wound up.
Right.
And since they'd had all those tests, they decided I was being smart wasn't my problem. And so they had me tutoring other kids, and it just didn't work. And finally, this one teacher, again, thanks, Mom, for telling me all this shit, said either he goes into the next grade or he has to get another teacher. I can't do it anymore. So they skipped me in the middle of the year.
Oh, they moved you up a grade.
They moved
This
me
is
up.
a bad idea. And you were already small.
And I was already young. My birthday was like 2 days ago. So I was at the end of October.
Yeah.
So then they moved me up a grade. So I was a year younger than most of the people. And the real difference was between 11 and 13.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
huge.
later on because, you know, the girls are mature and, you know, I was this pipsqueak. So they moved me up in the middle of the year, and I got bullied for a while until I reacted. And the way I would react to bullying was ranting and raving.
Eviscerating people verbally.
Yes. They put me into this class, and I'm sure they did it on purpose. It was a man teacher, first man teacher I ever had. And he was tough. And he made me write on the blackboard thousands of times, I will not. It made me take it home, so I would write, I will.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Talk to the
Had the same strategy. The assembly line. As Henry Ford.
They were harassing me on the schoolyard shortly after it, and I went into a tirade of profanity that was like unbelievable. So the teacher hears me, brings me back in, and he gets out a piece of paper. And what he used to do is write on a piece of paper, this is what you're going to write 10,000 times. But no, dear Mr. and Mrs. Hansen, I was a combat Marine in Okinawa, and I never heard language coming out of a wounded soldier like I heard out of your son today. Oh my! Because I'm sure I used some of my choicer things. But, you know, then I ended up deciding it was easier to be a bully. So I found some bullying techniques. And once I got out of that particular grade, it was okay. The theory with everybody was once I got into middle school, which was 7th grade in those days, called junior high, they had periods. So you'd have an hour of class. They figured that would help me.
Yes.
And it did.
Yeah.
Because I got to get up and have a different
Move around.
look, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a big change in me getting in trouble with the teachers because I wasn't as wired.
And they weren't spending 8 hours with you. They were spending an hour.
Yeah. And what was really different is in those days, they put you in these limited classes with a bunch of other smart kids.
Right.
So I was in the same academic classes with the same 20 kids from the 7th grade virtually to the 12th grade.
These were not obviously the bullies. These were the eggheads.
No, these were mostly the eggheads and the socias. You know, I don't know if they had that expression in.
Yeah, greases and socias.
Yeah, who were the cool kids and ran for public
They had
office.
sweaters.
Wore sweaters and were polite and stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Drove Thunderbirds.
No, not in my school. Nobody drove Thunderbirds in my school.
In Outsiders, they did the socias drive Thunderbirds.
There was only one guy in high school, and I was thinking about this not too long ago. His name was Ed Reed, and he was like a grade ahead of me. He was a very handsome guy, very stylish, wore kind of continental clothes and everything, pointy shoes. And he drove 2 different cars to school.
Oh, in a fleet
In high
already?
school.
Oh,
One was a
This guy's a king.
62 Impala convertible.
Oh, baby.
And the other one was a XKE.
No, he drove a Jaguar.
He
to
did.
high
Oh, my
school.
God.
And
As his
occasionally,
second car.
and occasionally he would ride into school with a female teacher in a little Porsche.
no,
This guy was so cool. He was the cool. I wonder where is Ed Reed. He was just very suave. You know? He was like very Italian looking. Ed Reed. Yeah, that was much later.
So funny.
How did you? Oh, Monica, were you about
No,
to say
yeah, I
something?
was, but I keep asking dad questions, but I'm just curious. Do you think he was jealous of your intellect?
He was intimidated by me to some degree, but he was mostly angry because my mom loved me and didn't love him.
God, and his own mom.
Yeah.
I would have hated your guts.
Yeah.
You kind of deserve this wrath.
And neither one of them. Look, you know, it was funny because how refrains, your parental refrains come in. I supported my mom for the last 15 years of her life, and she lived in a place. And I was over there one time, this was not long before she passed away. And she said, "Oh, you were such a difficult child." And I said, "Mom, I've been hearing that shit for the last 60 years. I don't want to ever hear it again." And she was like, "Wow. I don't think your parents even know
Yeah.
the kind
what
of
they're
impact."
doing.
So I was
Yeah,
branded in my own mind as this difficult kid.
yes.
And that's how I looked at myself still
Yeah.
to some degree. And by the way, I'm sure I was.
But you needed help. You were a child.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have Ritalin the holy crap
Oh, you would have had
out
the
of me.
whole pharmacological toolkit at
Well,
your
believe me,
disposal.
I
You
did.
found it. Well, we laugh at that, but it's fucking true. It's
Yeah.
part of the recipe. You needed relief. By the
Sure.
time you're in high school, probably, you're ready for some relief.
Well, my high school career, I told you I went into all these cool kids, and I really tried to be a cool kid. You know, I tried to run for student office, always defeated. Tried to have a girlfriend, always rejected. And I would act out my rejection. So the end of junior high school, I didn't get invited to one graduation party. And I was really bummed because I had tried so hard to be one of the cool kids.
Really quick, this is unimaginable to me.
Well, it's
Because I've known you for 20 years and everyone's so attracted to you. It's really hard to make peace
Well,
with that.
I was probably 4 inches shorter than I am now.
Right.
Maybe 5 inches shorter than I am.
And more to prove.
Well, just a child.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've mentioned my friend Jim Titus before.
Jim Titus, no more.
Jim Titus was one of the celebrity junior high school kids because he was a child actor.
Oh, wow.
And he was very smart. But in the 8th grade, he was in the Twilight Zone, which was the most popular show for kids of that age.
Yeah.
And he got to have long hair because he had a letter from his agent. And it was bleached blonde.
Oh,
And so he was quite a celebrity, and he was always in trouble, and he took great joy in being a troublemaking exhibitionist.
Yeah.
I had one class with him. So I was in Carpinteria State Park camping in our trailer, in our family trailer, and he was there too. And I kind of recognized him, and that's when we became
Both from TV and school. Well, really quick, this was one of my questions that I don't think I've ever even asked you, but what was it like growing up in the shadow of Hollywood? Because A, you love movies, and it was so close, but I have to imagine it also felt like it was in another fucking planet.
completely other. Hollywood, it was a foreign country. I mean, it was so far away. You didn't go beyond your little town.
Right. But you were enamored with it already.
I didn't know anything about it. I was enamored with the product. I
Right, right.
loved movies.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, you watched him at the Reseda Walk-In, which is the star of Boogie Nights,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I've
yeah.
talked to PTA about it a bunch in the day. And at one point, he wanted to sort of buy it and turn it into like the new Beverly But my movie diet was that and what 30s and 40s movies were shown on television.
I am curious at what point you decide you might have a role in show business, but certainly not then.
Very, very much further on.
You just had this weird kid who was a movie star at a campground.
He wasn't really a movie star.
Well,
but
when you're in that grade, that's a fucking movie star.
Twilight Zone?
Yes.
The episode was called The Crazy World of Horace Ford. There was 1 year of Twilight Zone, one season where there were hours. And this is one of the hour shows. And this particular show was about a toy designer played by Pat Hingle. He was a character actor. He's enamored of his old childhood neighborhood. So he keeps going back there, and then he goes back there and he sees a kid that he knew. He says, "Hey, Joey," and tries to chase him and can't get him. So he goes back a couple of times, keeps seeing the kid. In the final scene, he goes back and he reverts to his kid person, and that's Titus. And then the other kids knock the living shit out of him.
Oh, boy.
They beat him up. He imagines he was one of the guys, and in reality, he was an ass bite, and they kicked his ass.
Okay.
And so it was very famous. He was my key. You know, he smoked and hitchhiked and all this stuff.
And also now, is hippie culture starting to burble up? Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet. Just gangster culture at
Okay.
this point. So he had a whole other group of friends who were in my school. And so by the time I got to high school, I had been so rejected by all the smart kids, but I was still in class with them. And I really started hanging out with Titus and these other guys.
He's your Aaron Weekly. 75% of your stories involve Jim Titus.
Correct.
Yeah.
Some of them are horrifying and some of them are hilarious. And most are both.
Yes.
There was a very charismatic bad kid who had a 1935 Ford panel truck with a Chevy V8 in it. And he was very charismatic, very criminal. And, you know, that sort of began. I was sort of law abiding and my parents were very law abiding. And that was not part of the deal. First time my parents got really mad at me, we went to a surf movie in the panel truck. We didn't get back till like 1 in the morning. My parents were so pissed. No cell phones, no nothing.
Yeah. What are they going to do?
So that was the beginning of my parents maybe concerned. And then shortly after that, I had my first real drink with those guys, with this group of guys. I thought it was terrible. I blackout drunk, threw up on my father, and, you know, that was that.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. I didn't like the lack of control. Then I had to live this dual life, which was went to school every day. I got good grades. I liked school. I liked learning. It was fun. And had no social contact with any of these kids in my classes. You know, as time went on in high school, my friends got deeper and deeper in the shit. Most of them got kicked out. They would kick you out to another high school and you'd go there for a while. And if you made it, great. Then they'd kick you to another high school. And after that, they'd make you go to something called continuation school where you just sat. Because you had to go to school till you were 16 or 18. So I got more and more isolated in school where I would go to class, but my friends weren't there. It was the beginning of that dual life for me. I was this kind of bad kid in some ways, but I was a smart kid as far as the school was concerned. And on the few occasions that I got in trouble with my derelict friends, you know, I'd get dragged in and they'd basically say,
They would protect you.
You're one of
a
our
little bit.
success stories, so
Oh, wow.
don't let us catch you.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
When does drug use start?
Shortly after I get my driver's license in October of 1965, and needless to say, I'm with Jim Titus. I'd been hearing talk of it. It was just weed at that point, and it was really illegal. It was a felony. They put people in jail for just having a joint. And our idols, of course, were Gene Krupa and all the other big
jazz
drug
legends.
addicts.
Yeah.
So I was over at this older guy's house, and they had weed. And I was very nervous about smoking weed because I only had alcohol. And I didn't like to drink. I didn't like the taste of beer. And they had some pot. I took a couple of hits, and it was like, wow, this is cool. I'm not out of control. I drove home. I really enjoyed driving home. I only had my license for about a month. But it really was a cool sensation, and I liked it.
Move your mic a little. You're a little off mic.
I want to have rational deniability about
When they replay
about
the tape,
all
you're
this
like, I know
drug-
that's not what I said.
about all this drug stuff.
If you listen closely, what I actually said was,
It was very interesting because here's a generation of kids who's been raised by parents who are law-abiding, who cut their grass, paint their houses, don't turn left on a red light. And all of a sudden, into this comes drugs. It starts seeping in, not just into the pop culture, but into their kids' lives.
For the first time.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you've got the Vietnam War starting to percolate. Some of the anti-war movements are just beginning to trickle out. You have a completely different attitude about sex.
Liberated, we might say.
Yeah, the sexual revolution in some ways preceded the women's movement of equal rights, but the beginning was, well, this is kind of fun.
Right.
And it's kind of harmless. And I don't know what the big fucking deal is.
I don't know why we go to hell over this.
Yeah, and the slut shaming and everything, which exists to a degree these days, was, if a girl had sex with her boyfriend, she was a slut.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that was all happening kind of at the same time. And my parents, most of the parents, had no clue how to deal with this. There was no idea that maybe this was the new normal. This was bad. There was no question they thought it was bad. And look, from an actual point of view, the problem in my area, in my generation, and then particularly in my working class environment, was that there was no education about drugs. No one knew shit about it.
Right.
And, everybody started smoking pot and said, hey, this is pretty cool. I don't have a hangover. I don't crash the car.
I don't punch anyone at a bar.
Yeah, maybe I should try some pills.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so
this is all right.
The progression was pills. People were taking uppers, and then they started taking downers, then the psychedelics. And LSD was sort of in the news. And it was legal for a short period of time. It was not a controlled substance.
Uh-huh.
So this is such a classic. There's a famous first episode of the new Dragnet TV show, and it was totally right wing. And it was all about LSD, about wasn't it legal, Blue Boy. And the great story is that Titus and I were watching it in my room with my TV, and my parents were watching it in the next room on their TV. And we're like hooting and hollering and laughing our asses off. My parents were like, what were you watching? Oh, we were watching a comedy special. It was a big divide. We didn't know how to deal with it with our parents. We were also 15, 16, and 17. And our parents had no idea how to deal with it. One of my best friends, he was older because he was in the right grade, and his mother found a bag of weed, and they turned him into the police.
No.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
He was 18, but we were still in high school. But that was not considered insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Because
feel
they
like
didn't know
if they murdered someone, I guess we have to turn him in.
They didn't know what
Well, they're
to do.
terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified. Let's just, be
Don't know
generous.
what to do.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a breach that I never could return from, particularly with my father. It was so dire, and it lasted longer than it should have because they threw me out and then I moved back. And I wasn't very sympathetic about it. One of the things about getting sober is you look at your side of the street, and
Yeah.
I was not a easy piece of work.
No, I would hate to argue with you. If you were fucking 17, no one wants to argue with you. That's why you're a great lawyer. It must have been torturous.
And I went from their valedictorian kid to this tattooed Harley
Yeah, that's
riding
scary
junkie.
for them.
you know?
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to that really quick. So we start with marijuana, we get into psychedelics. We end up shooting dope,
Yeah, we do.
which is crazy.
Crazy.
What was working when it worked? Just hearing your story, it's like, well, obviously you wanted companionship so fucking bad.
Sure.
And this was the group that brought you in.
They thought I was funny.
Yes. They're even protective of you.
Very much so. Several times my ass was not kicked.
when it should have been.
When it should have been because of my wise mouth.
Yes. So that's so obvious to
Yeah.
me. But then also the drugs themselves are probably giving you some relief or some comfort.
So here's my life. I'm a really smart kid, and I am working as a junior high school janitor. My boss is a recently retired warrant officer from Vietnam who does not care for my hair length.
Right.
And I am working from 2 p.m. to 10 at night. And I have become a zombie. And I am living in this world where nothing looks good. I'm just waiting to get drafted to go to Vietnam because I wasn't going to school anymore. I went to college for a year and a half. And I'm living with my parents, and I have no hope. And the dope makes everything good. You're protected.
Tolerable.
More than tolerable. I mean, that's the great thing about opium. You don't care. You could be hanging upside down from a flagpole somewhere.
In a state of elation.
Yeah, it's a wonderful drug. There's a reason that people do it. I was just miserable. I was completely unfulfilled.
You were not living up to your potential. You had no
I
purpose.
didn't even care about my potential.
Right.
You know? And then I had another job where I worked during the day, and I drove a little delivery van from North Hollywood to where the Beverly Center is now, 3 times a day through Laurel Canyon. And I picked up Frank Zappa hitchhiking. And
Oh, my God.
And it was like 1968, so it was hippier than shit.
This is like Laurel Canyon's golden era.
It was the absolute golden era.
Yeah.
And I would park the truck in San Vicente Park behind West Hollywood, and I'd go back and lay on the mailbags and shoot dope. And when I crashed the truck for the 3rd time, they kind of let me go.
the 3rd time.
So my level of companions dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. And by the time I was getting close to being done with all this stuff, I was hanging around with some really raspy individuals. And I was in a house, and they had been selling dope from the house. And the cops came, took everybody to jail, including me, and charged me with possession of heroin.
What age are you at this point?
I'm 19.
19.
Just turned 19.
God.
And a couple of days in Van Nuys jail, and there wasn't any there. They found cut, so they were really mad. And there was a tiny bit of a reefer in one place, and they basically charged about 4 or 5 people who were in the house, including me. And I think I was charged with being in a place where marijuana was being used, which was a felony.
Oh, my God.
I went to trial. My parents, God bless them, paid for a lawyer. I got out of it. And that was kind of the wake-up call that this is not what I want.
Yeah.
I didn't want the establishment, but I didn't want this. This was criminal lowlife. It was just dark and weird.
And hopeless.
Yeah. Nobody was going anywhere good in this group.
Yeah.
My sister, by that time, who had had a failed marriage, had moved down to the marina and was living on a boat with some hippies. And there was a vacant boat in the neighborhood. So I moved down, just disappeared.
Geographical cure.
Correct. Still smoked pot. Still took psychedelics.
But no more
skag
junk.
anymore, no. And met some fairly interesting people. The most interesting of which was a woman who was older than I. We started fooling around. She asked me if I wanted to go to Europe with her. And I was 20 at this point. I'd lived down there for a while. And she was the interior designer for a big home builder. So she would design the interiors of all the model homes. And she was well-educated and artistic and all that stuff. And she basically said to me, just pay for your ticket and I'll take care of everything else. So I dropped everything. I went to Europe. I was there for a year with her.
A year.
Wow.
She was 30. I was 20. Turned 21 there.
Incredible.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
Good for her.
I'm really waking up to this.
She also liked girls too.
Okay.
Wow,
I've
she
seen
was
it all.
She was way ahead of her
doing
time.
a lot.
That's a lot of woman for a 20-year-old.
That
Yeah.
was. She was cool.
Successful.
Marianne Day. I lost track of her. I hope she hears this and
Yeah.
will reach out.
And I can testify that I've heard many times fondly of this year in Europe.
Well, it completely changed my life. I had no idea of the world that existed out there, outside of Reseda and outside of dope and outside of cars and dumb shit. And
Yeah.
so she was very well educated, and we would go to every museum, go to opera in Vienna. No TV, no radio, books. Everywhere you could get a book. I bought a full set of Dickens in London, a used set, read like every Dickens book. And if we were going somewhere, like we were going to Spain, so I read Michener's España, or I'll Dress You in Mourning, all these bullfighting things.
Yeah.
Never went to a bullfight. But I just had no idea.
You woke up.
Completely woke up.
Yeah.
Lots of people were traveling, English, Aussie, Americans, but different kinds of people than I'd been exposed to. People who were well-educated, came from big cities, lived big lives. So I got really, really, really motivated. So I realized that the best thing for me to do was to come back. One of my closest friends, I was the best man at his wedding. He was a fabulous guy, and it breaks my heart every day. Died in Vietnam right before I came to Europe. I was already scheduled to go. So when I left, I did not want to come back. This bad knee had been the reason I didn't go. So I was cool, but I didn't want to come back. He was dead, and he overdosed. And he was one of my bad buddies, but who was one of the smarter. It was bad. But I figured at some point I could come back, get an education, and then go live somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I came back. I moved into a big old rundown house in the San Fernando Valley. I had no money. I went to a junior college, Pierce College in the Valley. Rode my bike every day. I was 22. Having had the year I'd had, was like I was a different kind of creature than most of these 18-year-old kids who were going to junior college because their parents wanted them to.
Yeah.
And I zipped through that place and then transferred to UC Santa Barbara and became a film student. So that was the beginning of me even having an inkling that there could be a career, not as a business person, but, oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, that's so spooky. for Halloween.
Yeah, I have just Halloween.
I love it.
Spooky setting.
Yeah. So that was just the beginning of, there's actually a world out there where people pay attention to movies. But it was French movies of the 30s and Italian neorealism and all this stuff. I had a ball. I had started dating this woman up there whose father was a lawyer down here. So we were pretty serious and lived together for a while and stuff. So I got to know them pretty well. And he said, have you ever thought about being an entertainment lawyer? And I said, well, what in the world is that?
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're an asshole and you like to argue and you like movies. So
this is made for you.
Good combo.
So he said there's a whole group of lawyers who represent actors and writers and directors and they negotiate deals. He wasn't one, but he was a West Side lawyer, so he knew all about that. So that was the first inkling that maybe there was a career there.
It's funny. I want to pause to just say we all love this story that we're self-made, but it's just so crazy. You think of without the trip to Europe, where the fuck are you? You don't date a woman whose father advises you. I mean, it's nuts how many things drop into your lap.
And I've tried to, over the last 5 or 6 years, reach out and acknowledge that. For example, one of the only good jobs I had during this period of time was I was the maintenance man's assistant at what is now the W Hotel on Hillgard. It was a co-ed dormitory for UCLA.
Oh, wow.
1970.
Oh, boy.
And I lived in the marina then and rode a motorbike every day and had really long hair. And I was very popular there and really had a good time.
Yeah.
And that was a great job. I really enjoyed that.
Sure,
I really
of course. Yeah. How could you have not liked it?
enjoyed that job. And the irony is years later, a young lawyer came to interview with us to get a job. And I'm talking to her and, what'd your parents do? He's an accountant. He does this guy's own business. And where did they meet? Oh, they were working at this dormitory in Westwood. And I said, yeah, I was the maintenance man there.
No way.
I thought there was a certain amount of joy of hiring somebody who's the daughter of somebody who was
That's
a
crazy.
student there.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyways, there was a young woman there who I was friendly with, and her father was a doctor. And he really gave me great advice about the draft. I looked him up. He was in Santa Barbara. He's a psychiatrist. And I sent him a note. He was very respectable. I was a hippie. Couldn't have been a nicer guy about it. And I sent him a letter that meant a lot to me and blah, blah, blah. And like 3 days later, the daughter calls me who was visiting. He said, my dad just got out of the hospital. He's like in his 90s. And it really meant the world to him.
Oh.
And I did it with the lawyer who got me out of the rap.
Yeah.
And he didn't remember me.
You were one of 700.
Of course. And a woman who gave me a scholarship in law school, same thing. It takes a village. And so many things happened that any one of which had it gone the other way, we're not talking.
We're not
No.
talking. Yeah.
I mean, dead.
Yeah,
I mean,
same,
I
same,
put
same.
myself in a bunch of ridiculous situations. And sometimes my feeling of a higher power is that there was something that was saying, maybe there's something worthwhile. So many others, more deserved than I, ended up on the pile.
You go to USC, you go to law school, you pass the bar in 78, and then you start working as an entertainment lawyer. And I'm going to fast forward through what you would be uncomfortable acknowledging, but one of the very best careers one's had in this. You've had an incredible career. And as Downey said when he was on here, you're the only person he knows that no one has a bad word to say about. You represented Robert Downey Jr. through quite an exciting ride.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
I have.
From the jump.
You've been on the whole.
I've been on the whole ride.
All right.
Yeah.
Stephen Colbert, John Wells, who wrote and show ran ER for years. Steve Kloves, which wrote every one of the Harry Potters.
Not all but one.
Sorry, all
Wait,
but one.
wrote. All,
Yeah, the scripts.
Screenplays.
Oh, I was like,
Yeah.
excuse me, I have a.
We thought it
bone
was
to
maybe
pick.
Joe.
Yeah,
Ryan.
something about that.
But I didn't know much about him until I was reading about you today. But forget he wrote those Harry Potters. He wrote Racing with the Moon,
The
which is
greatest.
like my favorite.
Wonder Boys.
And he wrote and directed The Fabulous Baker Boys.
Yeah, which was great.
But John Waters, like you either in life you get Robert Downey Jr. or you get John Waters. You
Usually
don't get both.
Yeah.
You don't get the two most psychedelic, exciting.
Well, and David Lynch, too.
David
For years and years and years. So when I was in law school going to the movie place, on midnights it would either be Rocky Horror Picture Show, Eraserhead, or Pink Flamingos. And I thought, well, I got 2 out of 3.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
If you would have said to me, well, I'm watching these trailers for these movies that someday I'd represent these directors, and not just represent them, but know them pretty well. It's an intimate relationship of a different kind. You know,
Yeah.
you're very involved in their whole lives.
And specifically at moments of like great
Crisis.
fear.
It's interesting, obviously, with Robert having gone through his ups and downs. Unfortunately, some people in the entertainment business have encounters with the criminal justice system, and it's terrifying. And the only lawyer they know is you. For you not to be there, to be the liaison between them and the criminal justice system, even though you're going to hire a lawyer for them, you know, it's really important because
Yeah.
that's a terrifying experience that you face the possibility of going to jail or having trouble, and the impact now that it has on your career. So
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff we did with Robert, which was interesting, was really finding a way to get him back to work. That was some of the satisfying stuff I've done.
You must be absolutely heartbroken watching this kid
Well, I love
who
him.
has unlimited talent,
Yeah,
and he's
of course.
such a beautiful kid. I mean, it's got to be fucking heartbreaking when that all goes
It
down.
is, but like anything else with addicts, at some point you got to say to yourself, I can't,
I got to get off this ride.
or I can't change it.
Right.
Right.
I'm powerless in
I
this.
had one of his agents call me once and said, oh, he's really off the rails and you got to go over there and get him to stop doing it. I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm fucked up. And number
No, it's not even
two,
get into the fact someone needs to come over here first.
well, that was one of the ironies which I've talked about is being in these meetings and sort of coming up with all these plans and being all self-righteous and having to slip into the bathroom and pop a Vike. Oh, God, what a mess.
Okay, wait, yeah. So,
So,
hold on. Yeah, we
How'd
need
we
to
get there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's great. So you're successful from whatever it is, 70 on with opiates. You're off those. You drank a little bit.
Didn't
I
like
don't-
cocaine.
maybe smoked weed or whatever
Yeah,
occasionally.
smoked some weed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
The genie was back in the bottle for a very long time.
Yeah, because I substituted the roar of the crowd, the peer group love, the name and lights, the money,
Yeah, validation.
the beautiful
validation.
wife,
Yeah.
the kids, nice house.
While you're building this incredible career and law firm, you partner up with Judy, your wife, who's also a fucking gangster. Talent manager.
First woman in the CAA mailroom.
Wow.
She was Ron Meyer's assistant. Left CAA at the height of its power with Mike Ovitz and started Intertalent, which was the precursor to Endeavor. Ari was there.
Yeah.
Patrick Weitzel was her assistant.
Oh my God,
crazy.
no.
Yeah.
So she's a badass.
She's a bad motherfucker.
Much tougher than I am, as we all know.
Of all these similarities, you and I both picked
Tough ladies.
little deceptively. Same with Monica. It's like, oh, look at this little creature, this little woodland creature. Yeah. What is she, 5 foot? And then next thing you know, you're like,
Could
oh,
be
fuck.
feisty.
Yeah, and we all know that it's the right thing.
It is the right thing, especially for you and I. It is the only thing. But yes, you have this incredible wife and partner, and then you have these 2 beautiful kids and this very enviable career. You should feel great, right?
I did for a good period of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, you wake up one day, and I don't know if you had these kind of fantasies when I was like in law school. I'd imagine being at a party and saying, yeah, well, I was a film student, but now I'm an entertainment lawyer. And blah, 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 blah. And that would make you feel great.
Yes,
And you would be fulfilled. You know, I am a combination podcaster and car mechanic, and I feel absolutely
Hybrid.
fabulous. And so you had this fantasy that you would feel differently. And it's not conscious when this is going on. And probably 20 years in, I'd certainly hit a level of success that was so beyond anything I could have ever imagined growing up in Reseda, California. I remember so distinctly being a kid and looking in the mirror and saying, the year 2000, I'll be 51. What could possibly happen? And I remember year 2000, it was like, great. I could have never imagined this, but why do I still have this longing? Why am I not ridiculously satisfied with everything? Why am I still searching? What is it I'm
angsty
searching
and
for?
irritable.
Around the same time this started happening, I had a back injury and I started taking Vicodin.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, baby.
This is
This
great.
is my old friend. Completely manageable. I go to work every day and I would take him for a while and then I'd stop for a while. And I'd take him for longer, take him less. And then I found out you can get him on the internet. That was the problem. Once I found out I could get him on the internet, and I didn't have to go beg every fucking doctor I knew, then it was easy. My poor receptionist at the office probably signed for thousands of Vicodin. Right. So it just became my medicine. I drank a little bit. But the problem, of course, is that it may keep out the pain, but it keeps out the joy too. You live in this cocoon, and I had these beautiful daughters and this big life, and I was so dissatisfied. I was so soul dead. And the more I withdrew, the more Judy wanted. And it was this really difficult time in our marriage because the more she would reach out, I would pull in. And she's the child of alcoholics, and her pattern was to really engage with her mom and have a big fight and then make up, and that's how they felt better. And for me, I would just get more and more withdrawn. So a few crises ensued.
And then 20 years ago, coming up in a few days.
And I just thought, maybe this marriage isn't going to last. And I have these little kids.
Yeah. How old were the kids?
They were 12 and 9. They knew that shit was happening.
Right.
And I moved out for a while and said to myself, I probably need to at least get this shit out of my system.
To evaluate
To at
your
least
life.
evaluate what I'm doing here. It's not just me. It's these kids too.
The most beautiful two little girls.
They're pretty good girls. I love my
God,
girls.
I
And now I have a
could cry thinking
granddaughter,
about
so
it.
it's even better.
Oh.
That was sort of when I met you.
Yeah.
And I was still in rehab, and they brought me to this outside meeting, and here was this tall, gangly, wise ass. His name was fucking Dax. What fucking name is that?
Yeah, strange.
Stage name?
I figured it's like a porn name. Right? Figured maybe the guy's got these tattoos and shit.
On a motorcycle.
The motorcycle would have been
That was the only
okay.
thing I had to check in the positive.
Oh, you
probably.
like that part.
Well, he didn't talk about motorcycles,
When we met, I think I had about 3 months, and I went away to do Without a Paddle.
and you got fucked up again.
And at the end of that movie, I went out
And then
for
you
a
didn't,
while.
you didn't come back in for a while.
It was like maybe 3 weeks. Then I came back and got another couple 3 months. Then I went out to do the press tour for that movie, Without a Paddle. Then I went off again. So, right, when you entered, I was kind of ahead of you.
Yeah.
I kept getting 3 months and going out for a month, getting 3 months. And then finally, September 4th, virtually when you were about to have a year, I came back for the final.
And I think at that point, the meeting had moved to my house.
You're right. It had started at someone else's house,
Right.
and then it moved to your house. And I still was, I think, largely ambivalent about you. We're separated by a few years. You're a lawyer and I was an actor. But I think when I started coming to your house, so much magic started happening for me. To get to hear you share for 20 years has been incredible. I admire you so much. I loved the way you could talk with such honesty and how much you embraced your character defects, yet you did it in a smart and controlled way. I'm looking at your life. You have these fucking daughters and this wonderful wife. And I slowly just started admiring the fuck out of you. We have this saying in AA, right? Which is find someone that has what you want and ask them how they got it. You're the probably only person I've ever been able to surrender to and say, I want exactly what this guy has. I want to sound like him. I want to be as honest as him. And I want to walk kind of shamelessly through all the shitty parts of myself. And the way you would talk about your regret of how you treated women, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. The fuck, that's me. I can relate to that so much. You're like a decent fucking human being who, you know,
Does bad shit sometimes.
Yes, occasionally does bad shit. I just started falling in love with you. And then thank God for some reason you were kind of taking a shine to me. And then pretty soon into that, we start palling around. Like,
It's weird.
we both love motorcycles.
Correct.
We love cars.
Well, that was the first breakthrough. This was the greatest. Monica, you'll appreciate this. So we are kind of getting a little friendly at the meeting, and it turns out we like motorbikes. And I say, I got this great ride up in the Angeles Crest. It's really a fun ride. And let's meet at this gas station at whatever,
Sunland Boulevard.
11 o'clock. or
Yeah.
something. So I get there, and he's not there.
Uh-oh.
And all of a sudden, I hear he's riding his GSX 1000, which is like a 180 mile an hour motorcycle. I hear this roar coming down the street, and he comes sliding in like 20 minutes late. And he's so humiliated because he's gone the wrong way. And he's ridden at like 180 miles an hour to get
I went
to
up
this
to 2.
place. And it's like, then I love the guy.
Yeah.
It was so important for him to get there on time. And we took this ride, and he liked the fact that I actually knew how to ride a motorbike.
Like a motherfucker.
You still do. You guys still ride.
We still ride. We
nonstop.
we don't, he's too fucking busy now. The problem is our curve is going in the opposite direction. He wasn't married. He was a barely employed actor.
Yeah, intermittently employed.
Whenever I was available, he was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Now since I've got 14 appointments appointments. I'm having my hair done. I'm having my toenails clipped. It's like I'm getting another tattoo. It's unbelievable. It's very interesting. Men, particularly men like us, have been conditioned in a way, working class guys, that we have to be tough, that we have to know the answers. And my job, I know the answers. I tell people to do stuff, they listen to me. I'm that guy.
Yep.
I'm not the
You're
guy
in
that
control.
shows weakness, that shows concern, that shows pain,
Fear.
that shows fear primarily. The response that we were conditioned, if you were afraid, fight, physically, verbally, sneakily, passive aggressively. So the difficult part, and I think one of the reasons we've been attracted to each other and we've communicated, is because we really don't want to continue that thing. As guys who were Lotharios in their youth and were not particularly nice to women because we were so fucking insecure and just wanted the love and the selfishness. Our job is to raise these daughters and to raise these daughters in a way that they have decent relationships with men. That's something we talk about a lot because there's a couple of us who have these girls. The goal is to raise self-sufficient, strong girls. This one, she's got her jumping motorcycle over the Caesar's Palace fountain. So it's important for us to do that. And we can only do that if we're honest and vulnerable and decent with ourselves.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Well, the universe gifted us really strong wives, gifted us little girls, gifted me you. You're one of my people I would have written a letter to, but I'm doing it publicly right here. But I just want to talk about a few moments over the last 20 years. One of the things I thank you for is a share you had about your dad, and I don't really know what motivated it. What year did he die?
Like 2 months before I got sober.
Okay. Clearly it was before my dad died, which we're coming up on 11 years. You had a share that went something like, I have spent my whole life blaming him for everything I don't like about myself. And he's been fucking dead now for 5 years or whatever it was. And you're coming to terms with, there's no one even here to blame. At what point is this going to be my responsibility? And then for whatever reason, broke through to me so much. Yeah, my dad's going to go away. I'm blaming him for everything I don't like about myself. And I'm going to be left with this. And that's on the horizon. So how do I want to kind of act? I just don't know that I go and I spend all that time with him as he's dying. And I don't know that I do all those things without hearing that. Small for you, but for me, put me on a path that probably prevented what would have been my greatest regret if I had stayed angry.
Do you remember we were together when you found out your dad was sick? We had that beach house, and you would come down to hang out, and you got the call that your dad...
I walked outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I came back in.
I sent my dad a letter before he passed away, sort of saying I did blame him for everything, and it wasn't fair. I think I had this fantasy that we all have, and I was still using, that he would at some point say to me, I was a rotten father. I was really terrible to you. You're a great guy. I'm so sorry. I wish I would have been different.
I blew it.
Yeah. And when he died, that possibility went away. And that was when it got the worst. And I was in rehab 2 months later. The sort of pressure we put on ourselves to sort of have, certainly in my era, the fantasy dad, it was like TV shows of Father Knows Best and stuff, that your father was the font. Yeah, it was the font of all rational reason and you'd go to if you were ever in trouble. Just was not my experience. And there's almost part of it I felt ashamed of, that I didn't have that experience. And so when he passed away, any chance of that being the resolution went over. But, it's interesting. I've gotten so much from you, too, to have some kind of a mirror in a way that's different because, look, on the outside, you're big, good-looking, strapping guy. You're as funny as anybody. You're as quick as anybody. You can fend people off emotionally as well as anybody. But to know what's underneath and to have been able to do that. I don't have very many friends, and you certainly don't make friends in your 50s very often, particularly intimate friends. And to be able to have as much fun as we have
Oh my God,
in our
yeah.
completely shallow and preposterous. We're like two 13-year-old boys
I love it.
when we get out there. You have no idea.
When we get
It's
to
like-
Wrightwood,
Yeah.
watch out.
It's ridiculous.
We get to the Big Bear Cafe.
Well, the best part was we went for a motorcycle ride with the esteemed actor Edward Norton, and they only recognized Dax.
In Wrightwood, that's why we like it so much. We're like, oh, this is our town.
Oh, no, I've had this whole thing with this whole evolution of Dax because we would go to Wrightwood, and the only people who would recognize him were the complete slackers who were like riding up.
Looking for a new fan belt for their snowmobile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever been to the sand dune? Has Tom
No,
ever been to the
no,
dune?
we've
Well,
gone
we went in Idaho
to a sand
Oh,
dunes.
got it.
to St. Anthony.
And his presence spread through the camp
Sure.
like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That he was out there. But now it's a much more sophisticated crowd. It's like the armcharies. And
Yeah.
they're very
They're a step-
intellectual,
they're a step
step
up
up
from the
above.
punk crowd,
yeah.
It's a whole different deal. When I first met him, it was even before parenthood. So it was really a punked crowd or a let's go to prison
Yeah.
crowd. So it was a very different crowd. And it was like snowboarders short of binding.
You got a little scared when you got recognized. You thought this could go any way. Anything's on the
They could
table with
challenge
this
him to
guy,
a
I can
fight.
tell. Yeah.
So we have this weird relationship. It's like we've known each other since we were kids.
Yeah, I feel like at the old house once, probably when I was babysitting, Dax was like, "Oh, my best friend's coming over." I was like, "Oh, cool. We're gonna go ride motorcycles."
It's this old man.
And they didn't say it, but then you ride, and I was like, "Oh, this is Dax's best friend.
Crazy.
How cool! You guys are
amazing.
gonna go ride motorcycles."
It's been so great to watch your life get big, too, because none of this was supposed to happen. This was not in the cards. When they were dealt at the Van Nuys Maternity Hospital or dog shit hospital in Detroit, Michigan, these were not the hands that were dealt. And what's weird about our relationship is, in spite of the fact that we're different in age and he's very sophisticated and groovy now, it's like we've known each other for 50 years.
Yeah.
We've done so many fun things. Motorcycles to Death Valley. We've gone to
was
MotoGP
fun.
together. We've done Angeles Crest a million times. Wyoming, even 2 years ago, we're on some donkey trail you found. Riding motorcycles. People are crashing every 5 feet. The only people we're running into are people who have been living on a motorcycle for 9 days on the Appalachia Trail.
You actually had to dig me out of the snowmobile several times.
Snowmobiling, yes. I've gotten you to go snowmobiling. That was an exhausting day for me.
Yes, it was. It was an exhausting day. I've had to explain to the homeowners association what that bus was doing in my driveway for 2 weeks.
Or the pyrotechnics show I
They
put
were
on.
convinced that maybe the ghost of Waylon Jennings
Yes.
was
That's
visiting
the
me.
goal.
Well, he
Yeah.
might have.
A 5-piece band looking at the backside of me, right?
Yeah. My favorite is on a Greyhound bus. I've been riding these highways.
I'm glad that you found your job as a podcaster as opposed to a country singer.
How dare you? One other thing. So that gift you gave me, sharing about your dad, I think really, really impacted how I ended my relationship with mine.
I'm glad.
Grateful
I know
for it.
you did.
And then the single greatest thing that's ever happened in my life is named Lincoln Bell Shepard. And she was made in your guest bedroom in Wyoming.
Yes, but fortunately not by me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, who knows?
Who knows? I could have had the...
However she arrived, I'll take her. It feels so perfect for me that we conceived this little girl at your house.
It seems so perfect to me that this person I met 20 years ago has been able to create this fabulous life filled with love. You know, and that's really what we wanted through this, all this other bullshit was love. That's what we wanted. And you'll have it forever. I mean, my daughters have their own lives, but the love, and I'm convinced that your kids give you back in their adulthood the time and love you gave them in their childhood. That if you didn't spend time with your kids,
It's
when
like
they were
a
little,
1 for 1.
it's a 1 for 1. And that's because you're putting fucking love in the bank and you're going to get it back. And these girls will be attached to you. And Delta will tell you to go fuck yourself from time to time.
Oh,
She
happens daily.
better.
And you will be tickled that she does. And Lincoln will stand by you when you do your second prison term. I mean, that's ultimately what matters. That's the real legacy is our kids.
And by the way, you know, the cool testament, and I'll give my brother this compliment too, but certainly with you, your girls who are now women, Rosie and Charlotte, that was another thing. Chris and I both were like, how do we get this? Because when we started hanging out with you and going on vacation, the girls were like 12 and 14. Like we went to Rosie's graduation. We watched them grow up and become women. And they're everything you'd hope your kids would be. And Chris and I both were like, what did they do? How did they do it? This is exactly what we want. And I think the testament to it is the men they've liked are fucking great dudes. I've got to meet them. My brother, his 3 daughters, they've never been with a man that wasn't head over heels in love with them. It's just what they expect. It's incredible.
And I hope we do it without judgment. You know, I always felt love was conditional as a kid. I always felt if I behaved, I would be loved. And my sister suffered from that a lot. And I think with girls in particular, you have to teach them that love is not conditional. They don't have to do what we want to be loved. It's interesting. And I think about this because I am an analog guy in a digital age. I was formed in the 50s and the early 60s. I think you're pretty much formed by the time you're 15 years old in terms of the way you've been indoctrinated.
You're formatted.
Yeah. And, you know, I lived in this homogeneous white environment where half of the jibes that people would use against each other are completely horrible.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I interact with so many younger, well-educated people in work, how different it is. And in ways that I never want to offend anybody, I never want to hurt anybody's feelings, and sort of navigating the world for someone like me who doesn't want to be a jackass.
Of course.
It's not a throwaway that I say I was looking at you and trying to model my own behavior in my marriage because you certainly didn't. And I did a little bit because my mom was such a boss, but the men couldn't handle it. So they split, right? So you never saw a husband and wife where the wife had the power and generated the money and you would know how to behave in that. It just didn't exist when you grew up. And even me in the 70s, every dad on my neighborhood called the shots. They showed up from work. Everyone did whatever he wanted.
Played
the food was on
poker,
the table. He fucked off
Yeah.
on Sunday to play golf. Like, I don't have an example of how to live co-equally with a powerful woman. You're my example. Like, that's why I've had to look towards you. And you were doing it completely from scratch.
Well, it's interesting because my mom was certainly the more powerful person in our family, but she didn't have leverage. And, you know, I think if she'd had leverage, she would have ended the marriage very, very early on. But she was a woman in another country. And I think it had a bad impact on us because we had this happy facade and it wasn't happening. It was a house of horrors, you know, because you feel it when you're a kid, when there's tension in your family, you know it's there. But it was trial and error with me because I certainly dated and women either wanted to take care of me or worship me. And neither one of those was very exciting to me. I meet Judy and she's this ambitious.
She can take you or leave you. She likes you. You're charming.
Yeah.
But
and
she'll be fine on her
And she tells
own.
me right off the bat, I don't really want a boyfriend.
Oh, boom. I'm in love.
Yeah. Because I'm really busy and I'm going to be an agent and I'm doing this. The funniest thing is she said to her roommate after the first date, she said, I don't know. I'll sleep with him, but I'm not going to be with him. He talks too much.
What would she write?
That's
Okay.
funny.
Last 2 things. One's just one more thank you. You brought Mark into my life.
Oh, yeah.
Our
That's
shared
going good
therapist.
still, huh?
So I had therapy this morning
Okay,
at 9 a.m.
good.
He said, how you doing? I said, well, I'm interviewing Tom today. And he goes, oh my God, that's going to be great. Are you excited? And I said, I'm excited, but Tom's nervous and I want to take care of Tom. I want to make sure he feels safe and comfortable. And then we just kind of start talking about you for a minute. And of course, he's handcuffed because he's your doctor. So first of all, thank you for Mark. And I think I started in a place of trust with him that I could never start in a place of trust with someone. I trust you so much. You've rolled in when I was relapsing and took charge of the situation. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever he says, I'm doing. The fact that you trusted him and I trust you so implicitly started me so far down the path that I don't think I could have ever gotten to on my own. So, and that's been life-changing, Mark. He's so wonderful. But in that we were talking and I said, I realize you can't even really talk about Tom other than to say that he's smart and you like him. I said, and you know, that's one of the things I most admire about Tom. When I think of the things that were aspirational to me about you is that I've known you for 20 years. We've spent so much time together all over the world. You have never said one thing about one of your clients ever. And I wanted to know some shit. There have been times you've had some clients that were in hot water. And I'm thinking like, I would not mind knowing the behind the scenes of this situation. And we're best friends. You have never, ever violated that privacy that you have. You have such discretion. And the reason that's admirable to me is that I'm such an approval junkie. You have something tasty to offer. You're an approval junkie. But you've never violated that. And I've always noticed it. And it's been aspirational to me because I too have some secrets to trade. And I have some fun people in my life that I could get my own approval through. And you've really been the model for me that I need to get it another way. That's got to be sacred. And it's
You make people
impressive.
laugh. You can do that just about on cue. So lean on that.
Okay, now the last thing I want to talk about, because I hate this, but you're at a stage that you're about to teach me a lot again, and you're already starting to. I've been watching it, and I've been absolutely amazed with the grace and the acceptance you seem to have. You're detaching your identity from your job, which is crazy. It's a very scary, especially for you, 45 years, to detach your identity from that job and to back off from it. And then you've told me numerous times over the last year, you're like, yeah, I'm slowing down. Like, I can't recall shit the way I did. I don't have my superpowers. Motorcycle rides are a little dicier. You're like moving through that right now. And you're doing it seemingly quite graceful. And I'm just curious what the experience is like of doing that, because it's the thing I'm now going to model.
This is what we lead up to our entire lives. The diminution of our capabilities and our eventual death. You know, a movie I love is Lost Horizons. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's based on a novel from the 30s, Frank Capra directed. It's a wonderful movie, and it's about a guy who is a very powerful guy. He ends up crashing an airplane in the Himalayas, and he finds Shangri-La. And you can live for a long time there. And there's a dialogue where the Dalai Lama is asking him to stay, the great Lama. And, you know, you're a relatively hale man now, but you'll have a slow diminution of your facilities as time goes on. And if you stay here, you'll live for hundreds of years. And that really struck me when I heard it 50 years ago in that line, that no matter what you are at any given point, at some point, and we've lived in a business where you've seen an awful lot of people who should let go before they did, and it's tainted their existence. Part of it is sort of, what do I want? My identity and my success didn't fix me. I learned that lesson the hard way, as you know, and with you. So one, I'm lucky. I like to do a bunch of other stuff. I like my old cars.
This motherfucker, Monica, he can get on the backside of a headlight of a 60s Jag and polish that thing for 8 hours.
Oh my God, like a Beckham one mushroom at a time.
How awesome was that
Right?
documentary?
So good.
It's a
I
10.
Loved it.
Me too.
Same.
And I ended up loving Victoria.
Me too.
Because I had a very different attitude about her.
Yes.
And I didn't know anything about how they hated him for
Oh my
I know.
2 years, and they called him every name in the book.
Insane.
Awful.
And this sort of thing, that's all he'd done since he was 10 years old. And it was a wonderful documentary. But you see a guy like that, who is one of the greatest players in the world, who's finding peace in something as silly as
One
making
mushroom
that
at a
one
time.
at a time.
Yeah.
And so part of this is, I'm lucky. I have these other things I like to do. I have this family I love. I'm watching this grandchild, which is amazing. I'm probably going to go there on the way home.
I'm going to add, my kids call him Uncle Grandpa.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be an uncle. He wants to be my brother, but unfortunately, he's you know.
Grandpa.
So he's Uncle Grandpa. That's the compromise.
Plain Grandpa.
He's Uncle Grandpa. Uncle Grandpa is the most enthusiastic human I've ever seen around kids.
I love kids. They're so much better.
Oh my God, does
They
he
are
love
so
kids.
much better.
He's on the fucking trampoline with the kids. I
Oh
won't go
my
on the
God,
trampoline.
me
Yeah.
either. Delta's always trying to get me on
Oh,
that
you went out there with
trampoline.
Delta, yeah.
Wow.
So, look, I think it's been a conscious decision of sort of trying to let go of that being my identity, not of it being my job.
Right.
Because I think as long as I do it as a job, I need to be all in.
You need to be great at it. Yeah.
And I'm not going to be crummy at it. You know, if I get to the point where I'm crummy at it, I'm going to quit before then. But it's simply acknowledging, you know, God grant me the serenity, accept things I cannot change. I'm going to get old. At some point, I'm going to die. It's just the nature of the beast. So my goal now, and to be rational, is you think, I have time. That's what I have. It's my most important commodity. I think I have enough dough, time. It's the one thing that I can't control. So why not do it in a way that's going to be the most satisfying to me? You know, sometimes I just like to sit around.
Yeah.
I just like to fart around. I have a little chair. I'll put it in my driveway where it's sunny and sit in the sun for 20 minutes. Think, just great. I don't have any guilt. Worked really hard my whole life. I am as self-made as you can be, because none of us can be. We've had so many breaks along the way. One of the things we get from this program, if we do it right, is grace. We get to aspire to a state of grace, a state of equilibrium, where our lives are in balance.
Yeah, we're
You
in
know?
symmetry with the stuff around us.
And I think it's all because we were desperate enough to decide that what we were doing wasn't working. I would have ended up divorced in some apartment building, young girl, this ugly, meaningless
Soulless life, yeah.
Soulless life. One of my favorite lines is, Lincoln says in second inaugural address, the better angels of our nature. I just love that. But I think the better angels of our nature will guide us if we allow it to do it. And the hardest part for me is ego, like somebody else I know.
Yeah, sure.
I think I've told you that a few times, haven't I?
Yeah.
I don't need the recognition anymore. It won't fill me up. I don't need that part of it most of the time. Progress, not perfection, baby.
Right. My favorite Lincoln saying is, no man's memory is good enough that he can afford to lie. That's a fucking...
That's a great...
That one hits home. As you know, as I found out quickly in my relapse, there's just one lie. That's all we're going to tell. And my God, does that turn into like
Sure had a
20
few
by
by
the
the end.
end of the day?
Yeah.
And then you're like, you got so much shit to keep track of, and it's all bullshit, so it's hard to remember. Yeah, that was a really salient...
On that note, I want to thank you because when Dax is in that mode, protection mode, I would say, there's maybe two people that he can hear, maybe one person, and it's you. So I'm very grateful for you that you're in his life and tangentially in my life. It feels like a nice safety net.
I miss you.
Oh, I miss you too.
Your life is big.
It's the only flaw in this love affair is where we started at different times.
That's true. Hopefully you'll take care of me.
Oh, I cannot
Can't
wait to
wait.
change those diapers. I think about it daily.
No.
Well, listen, if I could have gone shopping or even better, gone into a lab and designed the dad I wanted, you're the one. And I have appreciated that. Not only have you given me so many fun times and advice, you don't let me get away with shit either. I appreciate that. You're the last person to be charmed by me, which is helpful. You're like, yeah, buddy, I wrote the book on this charming thing. You can fucking leave that at the door.
I wonder if we are as charming as we think we are.
We'll do each other for sure. I find you impossibly charming.
Oh, I'm convinced, and this is interesting because of the generation gaps. I think I'm charming as fuck in the office. And I'm sure that when I walk away, people go, oh, my
That
Lord.
guy. Doesn't he have a great place in Wyoming? Why
It's
isn't
probably
he
a
there?
middle
Can't
ground,
you go
right?
out there? I'm mad at Charlotte because she got me addicted to this TV show called Below Decks. Have you ever watched it?
Oh, yes. They were a sponsor, too.
On Bravo, right? Or something
Yeah,
like that.
uh-huh.
It's incredibly addicting. And what happens is, it's from the crew and the captain's point of view. And you'll see some Tom Hansen guest being, oh, my Lord. And then, they'll turn around and the crew will be going,
Yeah.
I'm convinced that maybe some of my charm has fallen on some deaf ears. And it's like, who is this old geezer? The part of it's weird about getting old is you still have the same kind of emotional response that you had when you were 15. That's
Yeah.
why I'm convinced you're locked into place by inertia at that age. And everything you do after that, you have to kind of chip away at whatever you've been cast as. And you were cast as a brawling 12-year-old.
I accumulated all the habits I've been trying to break by 18.
Sure.
From 18 to 48, I've just been trying to get rid of these fucking habits I picked up before I even left Michigan. Well, Tom Hansen, I love you so much.
Me too.
I love you
you.
so much. One of my greatest things that ever happened is meeting you 20 years ago, and I adore you, and I can't wait to be a part of the rest of everything.
We're going to do it.
Yeah.
Can I do any commercials? What are your sponsors these days?
Tell me about your sleep number bed. Do you like it?
Love it. I put my wife on 40.
Do you want to publicly say how good I am on a motorcycle before we sign off?
I will say that
Remember when we talked about ego?
Dax is extremely. Dax is one of the few people I don't mind driving in a car with. He's
Yeah.
an excellent driver. He pays a lot of attention. He can drive anything. One of my real character flaws is I'm not good at backing up a trailer.
Oh.
And in fact, I've seen Dax volunteer to a third party who was struggling with a trailer to back it up. He can put that thing right up your ass.
Yeah.
You won't even feel it.
It was
Some of my ass
right
has
up
a
there.
28-foot trailer.
Very, very good at that. He's a
I'm
very,
going to correct you that that's not a character flaw. It might be a
mine is a character.
No, it's
logistical flaw.
It's shameful.
It is shameful.
For
Yeah,
me,
it's
Motorhead
unacceptable.
is that growing up the way I did is shameful for me. To not being able to
Alright,
back a
I'll-
trailer
I'll
up.
If a man can't
believe
launch
that.
a boat,
No,
you know, in the
bad.
one shot,
It's
yeah.
bad.
It's a bad
I,
look for us.
He's admirable, don't you think?
Yeah, I
There's
do
a lot of admirable
I do
characteristics. The thing that gets him in trouble, we can be off recording now if you want to.
No, go ahead.
The thing that gets him
We'll
in
see
trouble,
how
This is
good-
worth. This is
and
worth.
it gets me in trouble, is because honestly, and this will sound very bragging, we are both capable at a lot of different things.
Yep.
Capable. It doesn't mean we're smarter or better, but we can do a lot of stuff. We can fix stuff, we can drive stuff, we can do stuff. And that makes us believe sometimes that we are capable of handling things that we're not capable of handling, like emotional stuff, and particularly like drugs and alcohol, and that we can control everything else in our lives.
So why
And
not this thing?
I can just do this little thing, and I'm so good and so capable that I can do this. And I don't have to tell anybody about it
Yeah.
because nobody's going to know. And we like secrets. Secrets are big for guys like us. And that's when we get in trouble. And I think the reason I can talk to you about it is because I know it.
Yeah.
I know it viscerally.
You grab me around the collar, but it's never like I'm not also guilty of it. There's no judgment.
And it's not an indication that you're anything other than fabulous. We have weaknesses. And part of it is our strengths are our weaknesses. It's exactly the world we live in. And when you're really capable at most things you try, you think you're capable at everything.
Yeah.
And it's ego. So too bad you have to be a drunk to have this life.
It's ironic.
Well, I do think it's been nice. We've had so many people on this show who Dax knows from sobriety. Everyone who comes on this show is hyper successful by the terms that society deems success. And to know that all of you guys have struggled with this and are in a room together talking about your character defects and stuff, I think is so important because a lot of people have this idea about addiction and who falls into it and the type. And I think
did.
you guys just shatter it all the time, which is very good.
I never connected to anything before that. And I didn't know I was looking for it. I didn't think I was a drug addict. I thought there was weakness attached to it, and I always thought, particularly because of my experience as a young person, I mean, I knew what a dope addict was. They were the guys who were fucking in jail and living in
Exactly.
the cardboard boxes, and they didn't live in a house in Bel Air. And we have a great group, too.
Oh my God!
Are
Yeah.
you going to be around to give me a cake next Wednesday?
Of course I
Make the
would.
trek to Jeff's house?
Yes, of course. I would love that.
Ooh, what kind of cake?
Carrot, I hope.
Ooh,
I like
yum,
carrot
that's
cake.
your cake.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I do like carrot
like
cake.
that.
How is Dax's group of lovers and sycophants? Are they doing okay?
My children and
Yes.
they're
Children of the
thriving.
corn.
Yeah, it's Halloween. They're in costume every day.
Well, I'm talking about all your adult children too, all your followers. You're like the Jim Jones of Los Feliz.
Well, that's the goal. We didn't even get into the religion we're starting.
No.
We're always looking for big swaths of land out in the high
We
desert.
are.
You know what Charlie Manson's scene was like?
Oh,
Just
Lord.
that without the murder, maybe?
You know, I just missed Charlie Manson. Did I tell you that story?
No.
So there was a period of time where this one friend of ours was getting kilos of weed.
Uh-huh.
I was like 19. And he would come over. I've lived with my brother-in-law in this house. He would come over there and we'd break up the keys and stuff. And he said, so why don't you come and check this place out? There's a bunch of crazy chicks and stuff. So he was getting weed at the and I would have gone. It just was the timing. Years later, he told me it was the Spawn Ranch in
Oh
Chatsworth.
my God.
So my head could have been buried in the Santa Susana Pass somewhere.
You could have been Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time.
I probably would have been Tex Watson. I would have probably fallen right into it.
He's
I
very
would-
charismatic.
I would have been worshiping Charlie. Can you imagine
Oh, how that would have been.
Yeah.
all that crazy stuff?
I love you.
I love you
Thanks
too.
for doing this.
Yeah,
It
thanks
means
for
a lot to
coming.
me. I love you.
Bye.
Love you too.
Stay tuned for the fact check so you can hear all the facts that were wrong.
You just did a whole interview with your headphones off.
I took
and it
them
made
off.
me so nervous. What was the experience like? Was it different?
Well, I'm on a roll because yesterday I did synced without my headphones on because we wore Halloween headbands
Okay.
and I needed them visible.
Right. And today you have a bow, which
Today
is why.
I have a bow and a top knot.
Right.
I wanted the top knot in front,
Yeah.
and the headphones just wouldn't stay
No. Might need kinds that like attach in the back.
in the
somehow.
back. So I took them off.
You took them right off. And what was the
uh,
experience like?
Felt great.
It did.
Yeah, it felt
No,
great.
no. I don't like it as much.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
Yesterday, even though you don't like talking about
No, I've
dates.
surrendered.
Okay, great.
Yesterday was Halloween.
Yesterday was Halloween. And you did your hayride, which was incredible.
Did the hayride.
And you got a lot of cheers for your driving that last you
Which
through the year.
made you nervous.
You bank them for the year.
You said it made you nervous. There was perfect timing because you walked up to the window of the car and someone was telling me how blown away they were with the turn into the alley. And I said jokingly, because you were standing there, well, yeah, it's the number one thing people like about me is my driving.
Yep.
And then you said, oh boy, this is potentially a destructive activity you put on.
I know. And look, the other thing is, I don't want to be untruthful. It is extremely impressive.
Thank you so much.
But I also
You
don't want to
resist.
feed. Yeah, it's
But
hard for me.
You know what's funny though? If you think about the things that people could hang their self-esteem on, there's certainly worse ones.
Of course.
Because it's kind of innocuous. It's like, oh, this little guy, he thinks he's driving around people and the people really love it.
But and they do love it. That's not the problem. The problem is that you think that's your value proposition.
Well, depending on what the circumstances are. If we got to escape a city under attack,
yeah.
then it's a pretty
It's
big
one
value
of
proposition.
it's a cool part about you.
It's a trick.
I heard a few people say I like Dax so much more after seeing this.
Lies. Lies.
I was ambivalent about him until I saw him enter that alley. Oh my God, it was so fun. It was so fun. I love that holiday.
Me too.
Oh my God, it's so fun.
It's a good time.
I like that it starts early. That's a neat part of it because it's a school night.
Yeah.
So the party started at 4 p.m.
Yep.
It was pretty busy at 5. The weather's perfect this time of year. The doors were all open. You go in and out of the house.
So nice.
And there's little pockets of people, and everyone's a monster or a ghoul. Well, actually, in this case, it looked like Hogwarts.
It really did.
The house was Hogwarts.
Really looked like Hogwarts. I did think when I parked a street over, that walk was humbling. The walk from the car to the house.
In your outfit?
Yeah.
What? Tell me how.
At 4:00 was so embarrassing. I felt so embarrassed.
You did?
Yes, I
Oh my
did.
God, you look so cute. Tell people your character.
I was Rita Skeeter, the gossipy bad journalist.
Yes, and you had your own journalist pad, which is an actual pad you had
That's
back
right.
in college. Man, I know a pad, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
An AP reporter's notebook.
You would have been the perfect reporter because you're a pad man. You got your pad.
It would have.
Padman, the pad man.
I was good in those classes.
I bet you were. You're good in
journalism
all the
classes.
classes.
Yeah, so I
That's
had to
the
take
risk
a lot
of being great at everything is like it's not very exciting when
no
you're good
one's
at one.
excited about it. That's not true. I am not. I'm so bad at drawing.
Drawing. You're a pretty good drawer though.
No.
Seeing you draw, it's pretty good.
No.
Yeah.
You saw me draw one picture of Wobby Wob.
Really good
That
job.
was
And
good.
you did it quickly.
I did it really quick.
Under the gun.
But yeah, in PR, since I had double majored in PR,
Mm-hmm.
I had to take a lot of journalism classes. And so we had these reporters' notebooks, and I, for some reason, still have one.
Of course.
And I brought it as part of my costume.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to walk. And so I'm in this bright green, satin green skirt top thing, a blonde wig,
Yeah.
bright red lipstick.
Mm-hmm. White face.
I did
you
not
can tell
go. I
people.
did not go in whiteface. I decided not to do that. I opted out of that. And I have this huge bowl of dip,
Right.
Labna dip. Allison Roman, shout out. Got a lot of compliments on the dip.
Good. Are you starting
I
to
was
think
going to
that
force you to eat it, but I forgot to tell you to eat it.
maybe you'll start thinking the number one thing people like about you is your chef skills?
I'm starting to think that.
Yeah, you're building a good repertoire.
Yeah, I'm cooking for some gals tonight.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
What are you making them?
I think I'm going to make this. Now, I don't think you're going to like the sound of it, but the
fish?
taste is no. It's a chicken, rice, pumpkin. Yeah, I thought that might get you. Kind of soup thing. It's going to be really good.
I know what that is.
You do?
I do know I like
Goulash?
a cinnamony kind of pumpkin-y chicken rice soup.
I've never made it.
Okay.
It's Molly Baz, and it's a very popular recipe on her site, and it's festive.
Is there any cinnamon in it? Did I make that part
Actually,
out?
no.
There's no cinnamon. Okay. Cinnamon.
But
We have our own cinnamon.
we sure do, little Cinny.
Yeah.
I wonder how his Halloween went. He
I
didn't,
bet
he
it-
didn't stop by the hayride.
Why not?
I don't
Bigger
know, but I
fish to
didn't
fry.
see him.
You know he was somewhere super interesting.
Of course.
He was just on his like street with his neighbors, he said.
He has a lot of good friends in his neighborhood.
Of course he does. Already more friends in his neighborhood than we have in our neighborhood.
Exactly. So the walk is just one of those. I look so stupid. I was so embarrassed, and I felt like I looked so stupid.
Oh, wow.
On my own. It's one thing if you're with one other person in costume.
Yes, then it's neutralized.
Yes, but by yourself, and someone was walking their dog, and they were looking at me like.
But they knew.
They knew, but of
knew.
course, and there's like a little smile on their face because everyone's embarrassed for everyone. We're just adults
in character.
Character. It is embarrassing, but beautiful too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have strolled down any street in my Dumbledore
Yeah. You didn't
With
even
an
look
F?
like you. Nope. Regular Dumbledore.
door, no F.
Yeah, you
Okay,
you
I
really want to
do.
say Dumbledore.
I think I said it all last
You
night.
did.
Yeah. Dumbledore.
Yeah.
I'd stroll around anywhere. In fact, the more out of place, the better. Like if you put me in downtown LA, that would have been really funny.
That's the difference between you and I.
But you didn't. You say it didn't look like me.
It really didn't.
It freaked you out.
I had a little bit, I felt a little bit like when Delta looked at you after you shaved your beard when she was 3 and she said, "You don't look like my daddy."
Yeah, crying.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
You did. Oh no, you were scared.
You don't look like my best friend.
And my character was, ho, 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 happy Halloween.
Yeah.
No, Merry Halloween.
Yes, you made him into a Santa.
Yes, because I felt very much like Santa. I had a big white beard on and long white hair.
And you
Couldn't see a fucking thing.
you had a spell you did.
I did. Shall I say it?
Yes.
Fortimus eruptus. And that would cause the person with the new curse on them to fart unexpectedly.
That's right.
Yeah. The kids it was all for the kids.
Yes.
The Fortimus interruptus.
Sure. It
Yeah.
was, quote, for the kids.
Yeah, me included.
Yeah, so it was a lovely, lovely evening. And it is a ding, ding, ding because the car skill.
Oh, yeah. And I want to add one piece of this behind the scenes, BTS. So John O'Yang, who's the greatest
Love John.
neighbor any human could have.
Yes.
He is so
runs
on
the
top.
neighborhood.
He runs the neighborhood.
Like
And-
in a official capacity.
Yeah, and it's laborious.
I feel so bad for
Me
him.
too. What a thankless job. So I don't want to bother him at all. He's so busy. And it's a volunteer job. It's so nice.
No, he's so nice.
But I did go, hey, if it's not too much, because I don't have the full email list for the neighborhood, but he does. Could you blast everyone? Just ask that they don't park just in these 2 places. I can make it through anywhere except for the very top turnaround and then the area right before the alley, because I got to swing very wide to get in. And so he was immediately had a map,
Yeah.
He's the best. And then, so I didn't even trial run it. I'm like, yeah, John sent that email. I saw the email. I'm sure everyone saw the email. And then first time out, I've got 25 people in the back and go up to the top. No problem. There's no cars. Great. Everyone read the email. Then I'm coming up to the alley, and that's the point of no return. It's either exit the neighborhood
Right.
onto Los Feliz Boulevard in a trailer that's 3x overweight of what it was designed for.
Yes.
And there's a fucking red car
Oh,
right
shit,
where I
shit,
need to
shit,
be.
shit,
And I'm like, oh no, here we go.
And
Leap
you
of faith. Let's
did
commit.
it.
Let's commit. So it was much harder
Oh,
this
I
year
didn't
than
realize that part.
it was in previous years. I had to be way over to the left, then go to the right, and
Oh
just
my
very little.
God.
But of course, I loved it.
I know.
Because I was scared. I was a little scared. I'm like this.
Yeah.
Because again, I can't imagine anything more humiliating for me, not for a normal person.
Exactly.
But if everyone's back there partying, get that thriller, and whoa, stop. Like the notion of hearing a bunch of people go, stop. Like, I would get out of the car and just walk into Los Feliz Boulevard and get run over. It's the most embarrassing thing that could ever happen to me if I scrape the trailer across something.
Oh my God.
So I had those stakes and that anxiety. So every time we entered without incident, it was this huge burst.
Relief.
Yes.
It is. It is incredibly impressive. I can't do that, I don't think, in my regular car. It really is. It's an insanely tight corner.
Yeah, about
It is.
6 inches on either side of the wheels of the trailer.
Yeah, it's really impossible. And you do it, and it is impressive. But I don't like that you would walk into traffic over.
I couldn't face my children. My children were on board. Can you imagine how embarrassed they'd be?
No! Can you imagine? Oh my God, the priorities. This is crazy.
I got to go out with honor.
This is how different we are. You're happy to walk around as Dumbledore.
I don't walk around naked around town.
Yes, and I don't want to walk a very short way in a
Half block.
costume. And yet, I'm happy to scrape up any old thing I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't matter.
It's also arbitrary. You just pick. You pick the things you
Well,
care
my
about. And you know
identity
what?
is not connected to how well I drive at all. I could care less.
Yeah, but you're a good driver.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
you
nice.
are. You are a good driver. It's kind of shocking because you have such little interest in cars and stuff. Yet you are a good driver. You're very confident.
I'm confident, but I hit a lot of curbs.
Well, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
In a city with curbs.
And I don't care, though. It doesn't bum me. It only bums me out if it, scrapes up the car, which sometimes it does.
On the occasion I scrape a rim, I have to go into this immediate, I have a protocol for that.
What?
Because I will kill myself over that.
Dax!
So I go, I'm back in, and I go, even by myself, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to do that. And then I go, you can't look at it. Get out of the car right now. Walk. Don't look. Go about your thing. If you see it, it's going to ruin your day. It's huge. I've got to go through all these steps. I basically ignore it for 2 days before I look at what I did because it's just too much.
That might be a guy thing. I'm the same way.
You are.
Mine are fucked, and it's like I think about it every day. Yes. Because I'm also like a parallel parker from Chicago.
Yes, you're supposed to.
It's really fucking hard.
And the curbs are so high here
Yeah.
too. And
I know. I got to say that's my favorite thing about my Raptor is the tires are so big that I can just, when I parallel park, I just purposely hit the tires on the thing, and that doesn't matter.
That's
The rim's
nice.
way above it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the move for LA. You parallel park so much. I bet I would love to see data on this. I bet this is the #1 parallel parking city because there's more drivers
I bet.
and people. So you're doing it all the time.
Yes, and this is an Easter egg, actually, to an upcoming flightless bird. David does an episode on driving.
cars is what he calls it.
Cars, but it ends up being a parking episode.
Okay.
And it really is interesting to actually start paying attention to how many cars are just fucking parked everywhere.
Uh-huh.
But in LA specifically, you have to parallel park so much.
Yes.
And it was the bane of my existence when I first moved here because I barely could do that on my driving test. And then I never had to do it again in Georgia. You don't have to
you
do
pull
it.
into parking lots everywhere you go. Yeah.
Oh, it was so stressful. I remember I was meeting a bunch of new friends
Uh-oh.
at at the Melrose Flea Market.
Okay.
And that is a hectic area over
Oh,
there.
it is. It's a shit show over there.
And I had to park, and I was just driving and hoping there'd be a spot I could park at that wasn't parallel parking. This is like 15, 17 minutes in. I'm just going to be, I'm late. And then finally there's a parallel, I'd have to parallel park.
You got to just commit.
And it is so hard and so scary, and cars are waiting to go, and there's a man standing there watching.
Oh, boy.
It's
There's
the
nothing
worst
worse. I see
experience.
this all the time. A bystander gets involved.
Oh, to like direct.
Oh, yes. And
Yes.
they position themselves between the car. Like if the person lost control, they would lose their legs for sure. Like
I
they're standing in a very
know.
bad spot. They haven't figured out how to get in the person's mirror so they can see their hands. And now they're yelling and it's a strange. And the person was already self-conscious. Like anytime I see that, I'm like, oh my God, I know you're trying to help. But this is,
It's
no
so
one
bad.
wants this.
Yes. I would say the percentage has gotten a lot better over time, but 20% of the time I pull up
Yeah. You go for it
And
and abort.
I abort 20% of the time. And then I just drive and drive. Scares me still.
I won't abort, as you would
I know
expect.
you won't.
Yeah. I love parallel parking. In
Yeah,
fact, when
you're good at
let me
it.
ask you this. By the way, your car might even have it. If you had one of those cars where you can hit the button and it parallel parks for you, would you use it?
Yes.
Okay. I would never.
I know you would.
I've been in cars and I'm like, if the fucking automated thing crashed the wheels, then I wouldn't even know what to do with that anger.
Oh, really? You
Yes,
wouldn't
'cause I
be able
can't
to
blame-
punt it?
No, because I'd be like, well, fuck me. Like, there's no one to even yell at. And then who's taking responsibility for this? Just the notion of,
But you could just be like, oh, this fucking stupid automated car.
yeah.
And then that'd
Yeah,
be
I wonder
so
if they ever do.
crash.
Yeah, if they ever
They
scrape
don't.
the way, they must
They
not.
just stop. Like, even my car, if I'm doing something it doesn't like, it just stops.
Yes, I turned that off on my car. But
I
yes,
don't like that.
no.
It's very
Jarring.
Very jarring.
You feel like you got in an accident.
Yes.
Yes. Because when I first got my car, like I like to late brake. I'm like in a
Yeah.
Formula One race.
Me
So
too.
I'm late braking up to lights and behind people. The car
Right.
thinks I'm crashing like 5 times. That's why I had to turn it off because I'm late braking so much. It constantly thought I was getting in a car accident.
Right.
And then it slams on the brakes. And I think, oh my God, I hit. Like,
Yes.
it makes you think you hit it.
That's what this happened when I was parallel parking the other day. I don't know why, but yeah, it like slammed shut and I definitely thought I hit the whole side of my car.
Yes.
And then I kept parking and then I went to look and I had plenty of space.
No problems.
There's no problem.
You know, one thing we didn't talk about that I want to talk about, because A, it was just such a fun time, and then B, it gave me so many feelings. But we went and saw the Groundlings put on something that's called, what is it called? One Night Only.
One night only.
And it's a tradition. And what they do is they come together and they learn a Broadway musical
Yep.
in a day.
Yes.
And this time they learn chorus line in a day, which is not possible.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
There
They
was
did it for charity.
Yep, to help the out of work crew members. And we went and Kristen was in it.
Yes.
And we sat next to each other, which was really fun because
It
I
was.
always like knowing what makes you laugh. Also, half of them I've now known for 25 years.
friends.
They're my friends, and I don't get to see them very often. And a bunch of things were happening. One was just, boy, oh boy, what a special experience I had. Because I was just reminded, what it brought me back to is not the shows. It brought me back to rehearsal night when everyone puts up the sketch for the first time and how hard they made me laugh. Like, I've never laughed harder in my life than watching those sketches. And the first hour and a half of that show, I could not stop screaming, laughing.
Yeah.
It made me so happy. And then I was like, oh, and we're all getting older.
I know.
But we're all doing it still. I mean, they're doing it still. And that felt really wonderful. I was so happy for all of them that they figured out how to keep doing it forever.
Keeping that joy.
And then, and this is my soapbox, and this is not shade to any other comedy troupe.
Be careful because
I
I'm
know.
coming at you.
Because
in a
I
second.
love UCB. I love UCB, and I love so many of the performers, and they're some of the quickest witted people I've ever witnessed. But I will say, UCB was a movement. Let's just say that Groundlings all of a sudden took a real back seat. Like, it wasn't the cool place anymore. Like, if you came to LA, you probably went to UCB over Groundlings. Whereas when I came here, you would definitely go to the Groundlings.
Right.
So they just kind of went out of favor for a while comedically. And I was watching, and what I had so much pride in was these fucking Groundlings commit like no one else commits. That's the
do
thing
commit.
they fucking do.
Yeah.
With the characters and the commitment and the all in.
Yeah.
Just fuck it. I'm going all the way. It's such a unique Groundlings thing.
It is because I would disagree with you. Like when I came out here and knew I was going to do a comedy school, it was still like, which one do you do?
Right.
But it just became more tailored. It was like, if you want to do SNL
Yeah.
or like characters, you go Groundlings. Like that's the way. If you want to do improv and
Yeah.
like be very shiny there, you go UCB.
But also the makeup of the SNL cast started changing dramatically.
You think so?
It became largely UCB recruits.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And also then UCB started developing a lot of sketch stuff too. So then it moved into that a little bit. Yeah.
But most of the work done at the Groundlings is character work.
Yes.
You know, above improv work. It's all character work
Exactly.
and writing. And so I just was like, no, this is spectacular.
Yeah.
I know it went out of favor for a minute, but I was like, you're just never going to see humans commit like they do at the Groundlings.
It's fun. It was really, really fun. Yeah, I wondered if you felt anytime I'm in any comedy live, especially one of these schools performances, I get so nostalgic.
Yes, it's such a special experience.
I feel so grateful.
And Kristen, she came home from it, and she's like, that was its own experience. Like, I've had the Broadway one, and that's a super supportive group.
Yeah.
But she said this was a whole other.
It's a
She said like right before the show starts, everyone just came up to me and said, "Hey, I got your back."
Yeah, you touch everyone's backs
Yeah.
on their way out and you say,
Hey,
got your back.
I
It's
got
a
your back.
thing.
And it's real.
It's real.
You're in it together.
Yes.
There's no individual shining. There's just like we're all in this together. It's
Yeah.
really special.
It really is.
Yeah, that night I was like just filled with gratitude and emotion and just happy for everyone.
Yeah, I know.
What a great way to spend your time on planet Earth, being silly.
Just laughing.
Yeah, like literally like my main focus is to be silly when I get to be silly.
Oh, it's the best. It really is. Lots of talented folks out there.
Then also, to be honest, so I had all this gratitude. But
I know it's coming.
Yeah,
I
what
know
am I gonna
exactly
say?
what's coming. So unfair.
Yes, it's not fair. This fucking
Right.
business is
It's
not
so
fair.
unfair that there's all these people bursting with talent to share and they
I'm
don't
not-
get to.
It's not false modesty for me to say vastly more talented than I am.
Yeah,
on
survivor's
stage.
guilt. There's survivor's guilt
Yes.
sometimes in these circles. I have it a lot
Yes.
too, where I'm like, and then you wonder also, are they like, why her?
Sure.
How'd she get that?
I think they think that about me. Yeah.
Yeah. You are exposed to so many people. When we watch Beckham and you're like, that person's meant to do that. They're born to do that. There are people at these schools, they're just born to make people laugh. And then you feel it's an injustice. They don't get to do it. But that's also our
Baggage.
Yeah, that's our
Yes.
baggage. And that's wrong. They do it. That's what they're doing.
It's not pity. I want to be very clear. Like, there's no feelings of pity towards anyone. I'm just projecting my own obsession with financial security, and it breaks my heart that someone that's that talented, that dedicated, put in the time, put in the. I think minimally they should be very safe financially. That's really what I would want for anyone, to be able to generate, enough to live comfortably when you can't do that anymore. But they're going to be doing it forever. That's what I like. I really walked away also going like, oh no one's ever turning this off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Okay.
Who's this?
This is for Tom. That's why it was a ding, ding, ding for the driving.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because Tom and I love driving.
And you both think it's part of your identity.
Yes.
It was really cool to get to have him on.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
He's very charming, isn't he?
He is very charming, and it felt, when I was editing it, I thought, man, this person, this life is as interesting, if not more interesting, than so many of these celebrities we have on, right?
Uh-huh.
And we have them on, and it's wonderful and great, but it just was a reminder that everyone has a story.
I know. Yeah.
And it's not worse than this celebrity's story. It's sometimes way better and more interesting. And so, I don't know. It was a good reminder of that. If you're feeling less than or something, you're not. Your story is as full as all of these people's.
Yeah, we're just way more interested in the monkey who has the status, like we've even had a couple that I would have labeled as borderline boring, but they were very big stars and people loved them.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm the same way. Like if I could hear Nicolas Cage talk about really anything, I want to listen.
Yeah, I'm turning a corner on that because I'm really feeling there's a level of toxicity happening in the world. I do think celebrity gets tied into that in some way, or people look to celebrity or feel that they attack celebrities in a very specific way. All of it that I just think it's
they're not supposed to talk. They're
bad.
supposed to talk.
But in the article by Taffy.
Yeah, Taffy.
Yeah, Taffy. She says a line that I cannot believe. I have never put two and two together. She says something about how celebrities, aka the people we choose societally to celebrate.
Ooh, celebrate celebrity.
That's where that comes from.
Never made that connection
Never
either.
made that connection in my life.
I don't like the word. Like I run from that word. So never explored what it actually means.
It's so accurate. And I've never heard it like that, but it actually gave me a lot of compassion for what it is and why they do what they do to celebrities, which is the thing I hate. It's because we've decided you're worthy of celebrating.
Right. And now you got to live up to it.
Exactly. If we're going to say you're worthy of celebrating, then you got to be worthy of celebrating.
Right.
And then that, can lead to a lot of
It's a trap.
it can be a trap and it can be destructive, but it makes more sense to me.
It just makes the
why-
person more and more two-dimensional if that's the request.
It does, but it makes it a little more understandable for me right now, who's like very shocked and scared of the way people are reacting to celebrities. It contextualizes it a little bit for me of like, there's some pain and hurt when they've chosen to celebrate a person.
Betrayal,
Yeah,
maybe.
they feel betrayed.
Yeah.
Not that they should, because everyone's just a person. But I got it a little more when good old Taffy. I mean,
God bless Taffy.
she keeps
She keeps it real.
delivers. Yeah.
Well, back to the Tom having an interesting story.
Yeah.
I've loved a lot of interviews of people who I admire and look up to, but the most impactful ones in my life are like episodes of Radio Lab, Blame.
Ugh.
Like certainly, or I always talk about Raymond Carver as a writer. Like I actually am far more interested in pops of excitement within the mundane or, these moments of beauty in an otherwise not
Real
beautiful
life.
world. Yeah.
Ooh, I think I want to do that. I'm going to give you homework.
Okay.
By next fact check.
Yeah.
So
Monday.
Thursday.
No, you're doing it.
I want you to come to the table with your top 5 podcast episodes of all time, like ranging all the podcasts.
God, that's so hard.
I know. You have to, or you get an F.
And also, what if it's one that's like serialized? Like
Can be.
I do the whole podcast.
No.
Like, how would I isolate one episode?
Episode 3 of Serial.
Oh, wow. Well, I would do, I guess, episode 1 of Dr. Death. I just don't know how I would pick within Dr.
gotta.
Death. Okay.
It's their
To me, I got to
homework.
go, like, between now and Monday, I've got to listen to all my favorite podcasts.
You don't have to
all over again.
listen. You just have to remember.
Okay.
Because I also like doing this with TV shows. I ask people this a lot. Like, what are your top 5 favorite TV episodes of all time?
Episodes.
Do
I don't
any
feel
come
like
to
I'd be
mind?
good at this game.
Really? It's such a fun game.
I don't know that I remember specific episodes all that much.
I do.
You do. What's your number one?
The Red Wedding.
Oh yeah, that's a memorable episode.
Game of Thrones is tricky because there's a few you could pick. But I have to say, as much as I love that show, there's no Game of Thrones on my list.
Right. Friends.
Friends is really hard to pick.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it's not what's my favorite show. It's what individual episodes that I think were just done perfectly, had a crazy impact. One is the bomb episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
You probably haven't seen that,
But
but
there was a first kiss or something?
no. Well, my favorite sex scene is also in Grey's
Yeah,
Anatomy.
that's what I was thinking. I'm hung up on
that
that.
whole episode is also that's high up there. That's the one where Denny dies. But
Spoiler.
there's a bomb stuck in this cavity in this person, basically.
Yeah.
And Meredith like puts her hand in or something, and
their
then now
cavity.
she's basically like she's gonna die. I kind of, to be honest, I kind of forget.
Right.
But I remember that it was so enormous. Like I felt so moved emotionally, but also I was so scared. And then there's this song in it that this Michael Stipe and
REM.
and Coldplay.
Are they
I think.
Athens?
Yes.
They are, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so that's one of my fave TV episodes. Also the episode, well, this is more of a scene, but I'll count the whole episode. The episode of Parks and Rec where they are trying to get across a skating rink to get to this red carpet so that she can make a speech, and they're all just walking completely normally on ice,
On shoes or ice skates?
on shoes.
Okay, right.
And it is so brilliant because they're not doing anything but trying to get from point A to point
Sincerely
B.
trying.
Sincerely.
Yeah. No hamming it up.
Oh my God, is it brilliant. Anyway, it's just a really fun exercise.
Yeah. I don't know why that's not easy to access for me.
Yeah.
But this kind of makes a little bit of sense because I have this certain kind of memory that's good, but I don't remember plot lines as well. Like, and then Kristen has this terrible memory, but
Yes.
she remembers every plot line. Like, if she saw that episode, she'd be able to go through everything that happened.
Yeah, she would.
It's freaky, and then
She's
song
very good at
lyrics,
that.
and I feel like there's
It's
two.
parts of brains.
Yeah.
I agree. Anyway, okay, so 5 podcast episodes.
Okay,
by
5
next week.
best. Yeah.
TBD, Easter egg. Come back for that.
Yeah. I was hugging Anna goodbye last night.
Uh-huh.
And somehow my mint came out of my mouth and got wound up in her hair.
Oh, my.
And then I had to like detangle my. I just felt so bad about it. There's so much gross stuff going on with my mouth. It's amazing anyone tolerates me.
It's amazing your breath is so good.
I feel lucky.
I think that, do you think part of it's because you don't, how was your breath when you drank? Do you think it was worse?
Well, I also smoked, so
Right. How
can't-
was your breath back then?
I was always neurotic about my breath. That's all I know. It's like I constantly was like, I had tricks to smell my own breath.
Yeah,
It's very
sure.
hard to smell your own breath. but
I know.
You gotta what you gotta do is you pop your jaw up and down. You cup your hand over your mouth
Of
and your
course.
nose.
Yeah.
I'm kind of cupping over.
Yeah.
And then you pop your mouth while you're sniffing in. You go. You can really get your breath if you do that. Try it right
Really?
now.
Wait, how do you do?
You start sucking in your nose.
Okay.
Sound like a computer hard drive.
And you're forcing air out of your mouth with a physical act because you can't breathe out.
Oh, you're breathing out of your
You
mouth?
can't breathe out because you're sucking in
Right.
with your nose. You're smelling in. And then you're like the way you would put air into a room with a door by waving a door back and forth. You're moving your chin
I'm not
up.
smelling
Watch my
anything.
mouth.
I know, I'm doing that.
I don't hear any popping from your lips. Oh, there we go. Did you get any?
Not
That means
really.
your breath doesn't smell. When it's
Well, I
bad, you'll
also
smell
have a
that.
cold, so my nose probably isn't good at smelling
Okay,
right now.
so I guess Rob and I are gonna have to take turns sniffing. Open your mouth like a lion and then sticking our nose. What could make you more nervous?
That
Even if
never.
I know. Even if like I felt like my breath was good, if you guys put your nose inside my mouth.
No, absolutely not. That is an episode of The Office where Dwight smells Michael's breath and he does just put his nose straight in his mouth and then he says, good, not great.
Oh, that's not what you want to
Yeah,
hear.
it's not.
No.
It's not.
That means bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. You gotta learn how to. And this is how it is in Japan. Like Japan, there's a lot of really subtle stuff. We've learned this on a couple different episodes. But there's subtle ways. They're very reluctant to say no directly. So there's a thing where they won't look you in the eyes. But if they look you in the eyes and say yes, it is a real yes. But similarly, when you're asking someone some feedback that's very sensitive,
Yeah.
anything short of like enormous expletives is probably not great.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. That means it's
Not
bad. It's
great.
bad. Yeah.
Oh, God.
How's this outfit? Oh, it's fine. Ooh. It's probably not a great
But
outfit.
breath?
Oof.
Do you think, okay, because I think if I smelled someone's breath and it was totally neutral,
Yeah.
I would say it's fine.
It's nothing. You might be able to say,
I guess I would maybe a better choice would be, oh, I don't smell anything.
I don't smell anything.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Okay. But you wouldn't say it's great
I would-
because that means it's minty.
Yes. And I want to be clear. I think because I'm so obviously not afraid of confrontation, people might assume that I'm okay with something like that. I am not. I cannot tell
You
someone
would
they
never.
have bad breath.
I know.
Or that their vagina smelled or something.
Okay,
No, Hold
obviously.
on. No, because this is what I want to say.
Oh,
I would not, like if I met someone that I really liked, but their breath was horrible,
yeah.
I wouldn't have the gumption to confront that. I would just move on to try to find someone else.
Oh, sure. No, it is
Right? You
what do you
can't
mean
do
confront it?
it.
It's not, no, it is a deal breaker.
And you can't really say anything.
You can't say
it's
anything.
too hurtful.
But even if you say it, it's over. The attraction's, it's done.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it's also pheromones.
Yeah, but there was a girl I liked that.
Had bad breath? Oh, well, okay. Let's say bad breath. She had bad breath.
She had bad breath. But I liked her. But I couldn't do it. And by the way, she might not have had bad breath to everybody.
That's what I mean. Pheromones.
Yes, that's right. There's no accounting for
Okay,
pheromones.
but you've had a range, right?
Of smells?
Yeah.
Yes, this girl, she was beautiful. She was so beautiful. She was very fun. Yeah, we dated for a little while, and I totally would have kept dating her.
Really? You think you would have married
Her
her?
vagina smell.
Like,
bad that
And she was so hot.
that like only if you were down there with your face?
No,
or
when I was having
Right.
sex, I could smell
Okay,
it.
you could maybe get through it.
Yes.
if it was that.
No, it was. I couldn't escape it while we were having sex.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, I just can't do it, and I don't. There's nothing they can do
I know.
about that.
No, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't.
I think it has a lot to do with what you eat.
Yeah.
What I've been told by gals who have told
no,
me
for
that
sure. You
they-
can-
you
you
can change
can-
the flora of your
100%.
vagina, and what bacteria is in your vagina is important too.
Microbiome.
Yes.
Microbiome's huge. What you eat, even if you eat something for dinner, sometimes
It's there.
it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Semen will do that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all the gut.
I've always heard that about semen.
So-
and I smelled my semen many times.
No, not smell, taste.
Okay. I've only tasted it a few times.
No, when I had my wisdom teeth taken out, I was told to have like pineapple juice and pineapples.
Okay.
A lot that it would help with the bleeding.
Ow.
And it
there
worked.
was not only there was a noticeable taste difference.
But in a good way.
in a good way.
Yeah,
She's like, you should
pineapple's
have
suppo-
pineapple more.
Pineapple is supposed to be good for any of your bodily fluids.
everything.
Yeah, for women too.
Oh, wow.
Pineapple, lemon.
Oh, maybe I should start banging some more pineapple. Not that anyone's
Kristen's
eating
having,
no one's
if she
eating my
wants
sperm,
it.
so I don't.
Yeah. Ew, eating sounds like it's chewy or something.
Waited for it to solidify. and,
God. Oh, wait, also, it's not like every partner of yours, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I get both of you, has the same smell,
No.
breath or
No.
vagina.
No, that's right.
But,
Or armpits, or
or armpits, yeah. And belly buttons and stuff.
yeah,
So,
ass.
Farts.
Yeah.
So now,
What question?
is
do
it,
I have?
is it like,
Tom Hansen will be so happy that this is part of the fact check because what we barely scratch at is Tom is the biggest pervert in the world. That's why.
Yeah.
That's the only thing when when we left the interview, I was like, that was really lovely, and I was really happy that
Yeah.
he was so comfortable and it was great. The only thing I thought is I wish they got a little more taste of is like what our real bond is he and I are just like
but
two
he's
10-year-olds.
he can't.
Yeah, he can't. No, he can't. But we have so much fun
Yeah.
being
He did say
10-year-old
he did
boys.
say that, but he didn't display it so much. But when you have this range of partners,
Mm-hmm.
is there like I like them all the smells, but they're different? Or is it like this person definitely has a better smell than the other? Like I'm talking people you're in love with, not just partners, but
Right.
people you've been in love with.
Yeah.
Is it, oh, okay, this is this person's smell. I love it.
Yeah.
Now over here's this person's smell. I love it. Or is
You
it like,
prefer one
yeah,
over the other. Well, I would add a third bucket somehow, which would be almost no smell.
Yeah,
like
it's neutral enough.
neutral,
that it
yeah.
doesn't
That
really
you
register.
couldn't rank it.
But don't you think we
But
all
I
have
also-
some smells? Kristen has given me the best compliment ever of my whole life. She said I have no smell.
Right. I would agree. And
Like in general, she's
Yeah.
like, I never smell you. Like you're just
and Kristen doesn't really
she
have the
doesn't
smell
either.
either.
Yeah.
Which is great. Well, I don't want to say great because I've liked the smell of people too a lot. It can make me horny as hell.
sure.
Like certain
That's
people.
what the whole point of the smells
Yeah,
are.
so it's not to say that like presence of odor is inherently bad.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
like
just when it's bad,
it's bad.
if it's bad and strong,
yeah.
yeah.
Or even the good and too strong can be.
Oh,
okay.
that's an interesting spin.
I've not-
I think you're just
I
saying
don't know
that.
if I've heard. I mean, I don't. If it's
Has
good for
anyone said
me.
it
Well,
smells too good?
Oh yeah, I can't stay that way.
Well, like no, our nanny wears really strong perfume.
Oh,
Okay.
perfume is different.
But the perfume smells fine.
but it can,
It's
but
just
it can
too much.
be
Yeah, it's a nice perfume.
toxic
I got you.
smelling.
but it's very strong.
I got you. That makes sense.
So I could imagine a partner
Mm-hmm.
if it's that strong.
yeah, if you can smell from across the room,
But it smells
and
good,
everyone's
though? You'd
clothes,
like it.
That's true. I'd want to get in
You'd
there.
want- exactly.
Yeah,
It
come
would
running.
make you want-
Well, you know that is one of the reigning theories of pubic hair. You know that.
What?
That the whole reason we have pubic hair above our genitals is that the pheromones get on the pubic hair and the pubic hair dispenses the pheromones. It's a way to dispense pheromones. That's what it's there for. Because if you look at where hair is generally, it's a lubricant. Like it's in your armpits where the crease of your arm rubs a lot. So it acts as a lubricant. it'd be great between your thighs to have, because that's also, you need, there's friction there. But above this big tuft of hair we all have, if we're lucky, what's it
If
there
you
for?
choose.
What's it there for? And the reigning theory is to disperse the pheromones.
That's funny. I would imagine it to be the opposite, that it would stop the smell. It would suppress the smell so that you don't get eaten by bears.
Like,
No, I think the smell would like evaporate into the air. Instead, it's like living on all now this new surface area. It's just increasing surface area by 10 million %, right? Because each strand has got its own surface area. So it's just covering much more surface area that interacts with the air and disperses.
Is it not like eyelashes and eyebrows, like to keep things out of your eyes?
Yeah,
it's like to
that's what
protect your genitals from bacteria and like a wall.
That makes total sense if we had hair around the tip of our penis where our urethra is, where we'd be taking in the dirt.
Oh, you're
but
talking
we
about
don't have any. We
men's.
don't have both. You don't have it on the mouth. You don't have it in your vagina.
Not in, but-
or in the inner labia. You have it on the majora.
Yeah.
And then you have it on your
Well,
mom's
sometimes
pubis.
you get a couple hairs.
Sure, you're gonna have some errant
Errant
hairs, but they're not gonna be in your anus.
No.
Right. But those are, we can kind of see the function of all these things. But 8 inches above your penis, it's the pheromones. It's a disperser.
I don't know. I'm on the fence
Okay.
between you two.
All right. Well, that'll be your homework. So I'm going to come up with my
fuck,
5.
no, I have enough homework.
You need to do a little research
No,
on
no,
the
no.
pheromone disbursement.
No. Wait, so you guys kind of didn't answer. Are you ranking it? 'Cause then you added a third option of no smell, which I don't even I don't.
So this weirdly dovetails into previous kind of debates we've had or conversations, which is I don't rank. I loved Carrie.
Yeah.
And I loved Bree.
Yeah.
And I love Kristen.
Yes.
They're different, and they can't really be made relative to one another.
Yeah,
That's
I think I
interesting.
agree. As long as it is not bad, I think that's the only time you would rank it.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay. Anyway.
So yeah, there's a wide range.
Yeah.
Oh, sound like a little goblin there. Still
Yeah,
Halloween.
it's still a little cold. So I have zero memory of how we got here on this topic.
How did we?
Tom.
Started with breath. Oh, I spit my mint out on
On
his
his
hair.
hair, yeah.
Yes, and then it's shocking I don't have bad breath, right? Because I'm chewing
Yes.
tobacco and stuff.
Yes. But you have great breath.
Thank you so much.
You do.
Right back at you. Rob too. Never smelled Rob's
Yeah, I've never
breath.
smelled your breath.
We're lucky because we're in a tight little area.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be so
I
bad.
don't know how we deal with it. And I wouldn't fire anyone over it. I would just quit the show altogether.
Yeah, we'd
I
have
would
to
just,
stop.
Yes, I
We'd
would
have
just
to
quit
just
everything. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we have to play something.
What are we
Something
playing?
amazing happened.
Oh my God. Thank you
Yes.
for remembering. Okay, it's on my phone. Okay, so just to set the stage for you, I'm downstairs on Saturday watching qualifying in the basement. And Lincoln runs downstairs and she's already screaming as she's running down the stairs. Like that's how excited. Something huge just happened.
Of excitement.
Yeah, enormous. And she's yelling, "They're talking about you on High School Musical. They're talking about you." And I go, "What?" She goes, "They just said your name on High School Musical." And I immediately, I'm like, oh God, they probably
Something
made
bad.
fun of me, of
Aw.
course. They're teasing me.
Yeah.
And my poor daughter had to hear it. So, and I'm kind of lazy because I'm in the middle of qualifying. And I go, "Wait, what do you," and she could barely remember exactly. And I go, "Will you go upstairs and record it on my phone and then show me what it is?"
Yes.
And then she came down and she showed me this, and she's the happiest she's ever been towards me. It's the first time she's been enormously proud to be associated with me. It was the best moment of all time. This is it. This is from High School Musical 3.
You didn't have a problem with me kissing a certain 2010s TV star during the reunion song, Bill?
The only 2010s TV star I'm threatened by is Dax Shepard, and I'm pretty sure he lives in the attic now, so.
Yeah. That's so amazing.
Oh, I think it's like it's up there with like being on Letterman or something.
Yes. And that it's like somehow, for me, what's cool is that,
The writers like the show.
yeah, or like that they think it's a good enough joke, like a quote ubiquitous enough joke to have
say
like
I'm
the
in the
attic.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I want to thank whatever writer put that in there. Some writer likes the show.
Oh, it's really
Oh,
sweet.
that made my weekend.
That's awesome.
She was so excited. It was so funny.
Oh, I would have
Yeah.
been so excited
Just
if I
popped
were her.
up on her favorite show.
Wow.
Yeah, boy, what a
Wowie,
moment.
wow.
Thank you so much, High School Musical 3.
Okay, so he mentions the Drake Hotel in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And when he said that, I know that a lot of people listening are going to have the same thought I have, which is My Best Friend's Wedding, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay.
At the beginning of the movie, they meet at the Drake Hotel
Oh,
in Chicago.
so it was really,
And they say, Chicago at the Drake Hotel.
so it was nostalgic.
Yeah.
It took you back.
It did. Made me want to rewatch. I haven't yet.
You haven't yet.
No.
My prediction is you will, and you will 6 times.
Yep.
Yeah. You got it.
That's right. Okay. When I was listening back, like his voice sounds so much like Robert Downey Jr. So much.
It does?
Yes. And like
Oh.
cadence. And it's very similar. And they're friends. So I wondered like
For
what
35 years or
right.
something.
Maybe there was a
Shared.
what's it called when like
Family
a
con?
molting.
Oh, yeah. Combining,
Yeah.
conflating? I don't
Molting.
know. Molting. Okay, we like molting. Molting is shedding your skin.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. And then it gets
Oh.
on you and then it gets absorbed.
Oh, yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, probably Downey has stolen some of his stuff. I've stolen some of his stuff.
Yeah.
He's great.
Transferred.
Transferred, cross-pollinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't get a full dose of it, but the 2 things about Tom that I find impossible are there has yet to be a book I've ever brought up to him that he hasn't read.
Wow.
I mean, not one, not a single one. And then he's read 10x that, whatever I've read. And he'll have not read it for 25 years. Like I had read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is like one of the most dense books on the planet.
Yeah.
And I just randomly was like, you ever read this book? Like, oh my God, yeah, the part. And then he just basically goes through the entire book from memory 20 years later.
It's amazing.
It's really outstanding. He's got the best memory. Now, one thing that he won't like, I've said so many nice things about him. I got to tell one story of his where he was bested,
Uh-oh.
which I didn't think I'd ever see. So I know a lot about cars. I know probably 1/10 as much as Tom knows about cars.
Oh my God. Okay.
And so I got invited to Jay Leno's garage. And my first thought was, can I bring Tom Hansen? So I asked if I could bring Tom, and Jay was like, of course. And then those two,
Oh boy.
oh my God. I wish there was a video of this. Those two started going off, because we're going through and looking at all the cars. Tom knows all the cars. But they started getting, oh yeah, and it had this single barrel Weber pea shooter. And then Tom would go, oh yeah, and it had the vacuum secondaries. No, mechanical secondary. And then they would talk, and then I noticed Tom ran out, and Jay Leno kept going. And that was the moment I was like, okay, Jay Leno might be the most encyclopedic person on planet Earth with machines.
Yeah.
Because he out-Tommed Tom Hansen, which I'd never seen, never thought could happen.
That's
so it's
huge.
kind of a big shout out to Jay Leno.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, he knows every single bolt that's in every single engine
It's
ever
incredible.
made. It's wild.
Wow. Okay, for people who don't know, which is probably a lot of people.
How into that story before you tuned out? How far did you make it? Do you remember?
I think you've told that story before.
You have. I do already know it. So,
okay, yeah.
and then mixed with all the car detail, it was pretty early.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how long is it going to go?
Yeah.
How many details will we get?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anxiety.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, which is many people, understandably, Tom told us that he was explaining Judy's career a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and how unbelievable it is. It's very admirable. And in telling that, he said Patrick Whitesell was her assistant.
Yes.
That is bonkers. Patrick Whitesell, for people who don't know, is Matt's agent,
Yeah,
Matt
Matt-
Damon's agent, and Ben probably.
Ben, I thought they were with Ari. But maybe
No, Matt's
one's with one and one's Wahlberg's with Ari. I thought, but you're probably right. You're probably
I
right.
know he's Matt. I mean,
Okay.
they all also people have multiples. And
Well, for people who, again, no one will know this or care, but there was an agency called Endeavor, and it was started by Ari Emanuel, which people came to know from
Entourage.
because that was Mark Wahlberg's agent. And then Patrick
Well,
Whitesell
the Jeremy Piven character is based
based
off of
on Ari, and I think he's named Ari. And then Ari Emanuel, which is incredible, is his brother She has
Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel was the Chicago mayor. And then the third brother was the Surgeon General or something. He was Obama's doctor, personal doctor at the White House. Those are the three boys, the Emanuels.
Yeah, and there's a good book on them.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but right.
And then Adam Bennett. So those three, Patrick Weitzel, Adam Bennett, and Ari Emanuel, started Endeavor, which then merged, or they bought, or whatever happened. They became WME, William Morris Endeavor, and they're the big rival to CAA.
Yeah.
And yes, he was Judy's assistant. He's also
Ben and
devilishly handsome.
Right. And I think he actually came up on our episode with Matt about how handsome he is. I remember us talking about that. But anyway, he's huge. He's an enormous agent.
Yeah.
One of the top 5.
Yeah.
And he was Judy's assistant. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Well, is it today? Wait, when did we record with him? Last Thursday.
Yeah.
So today is the day that Tom gets his cake. And are you going to go?
I'm going. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I already told Kristen that I will be.
You have to go. And make sure he gets his carrot cake.
Is
That's
that
what he wants.
He wants carrot cake.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. I think I might have forgot. But I wonder if my other friend who hosts, there won't be 16 carrot cakes there.
Well, check with...
Tom's very loved in our group, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
He is very, very loved.
He says he wants carrot.
Okay, well, I'll make sure he gets some carrot cake.
And tell him
He's got a little sweet tooth.
I said,
happy carrot cake.
happy carrot cake day
I will.
to him. One last thing. We talked about the Postal Service because his dad...
And I keep perpetuating
Yeah,
this
you
thing.
have a
I
whole
know, I
theory.
got a whole story about it.
But what you did say is that you have to take this test to pass, to become one. And, okay, I have a friend who just applied to work at the library.
Okay.
A librarian.
Yeah.
Front desk. And she had to take an insane 2-hour test.
Like the LSAT.
Yes. And you had to show your computer around the whole room to make sure that you weren't cheating, like no calculators. You weren't allowed to have anything. And she didn't pass.
She didn't.
No, and she's very smart.
Right.
And
imagine what the Postal Service test is.
No, for me, it's what the fuck are we doing that we're making it that? If my friend can't get a job at the library.
Right.
When we walk around and say, like, people can just get jobs. No, they can't.
Well, not at the library.
But you should be able to get a job at the library as a front desk.
Well, what's crazy to me
employee.
is you're going to have to pass this test that would get you into graduate school, but then you're going to get a very, very modest wage for it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is
They're
an
asking, like, the best of the
entry-level
best.
job.
Yeah.
People entry level should be able to get it. I know.
I hate
I
to
think you get
speculate
benefits.
this, but I think a lot of these early and now vestigial policies were when they were singling out how to exclude people.
They were.
Yeah,
That's
they want to
my
like
whole
figure out how
point.
to not have certain people there, and they just figure out what thing they can,
100%.
what hurdle they can present that makes it look like it's even, but it's not.
Exactly. That was my main takeaway. Is this is an old racist
Exclusionary.
practice.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Anyway, I just hated that.
Yeah, it was kind of like, there was competency tests given in the South during Reformation to get your voting rights.
Yeah.
You had to be literate or you had to be this. And it's like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
What
a
does that have to do with
democracy,
anything?
Yeah. If I can show up, I can vote.
Yeah, we have not only calculators, we have it. You don't have to do anything. You type in numbers, it comes up with there's nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't even acknowledge the reality of the world we live in anymore. It's like a test from the 80s.
Yeah, I just thought that was shocking and alarming.
I want to take the test now. Do you? I want to see if I can pass.
I won't pass.
Well, you don't know that yet.
I probably won't.
Let's get our hands on this test.
Okay, we'll do it on here.
All right. 2-hour fact check.
And then I'll read Taylor Swift's commencement speech.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it.
Wonderful.
today.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love you.
Love you.